What if the past we know is only half the story? What if the Earth still hides secrets too strange, too fragile, too impossible to fit into history books? Beneath deserts, under oceans, sealed in tombs, and carved into stone, lie fragments of lives long gone, skulls with masks, weapons forged from the sky, libraries buried in silence, each one a riddle, each one a whisper from a world that refuses to be forgotten. These are not just artifacts, they are mysteries, pieces of human history that raise more questions than answers. And tonight, we step into their shadows. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? The Horned Skull of Sayre. They say the quietest towns often hide the loudest secrets. Sayre, a small place tucked away in the rolling hills of Pennsylvania, doesn't look like the kind of setting for one of the strangest archaeological puzzles in American history. Farms, rivers, the steady rhythm of daily life. It all seems ordinary. But beneath those quiet fields, buried deep in the earth, something was discovered more than a century ago that refuses to fade into silence. It was a skull, a human skull. But not like yours, or mine. This one had horns. The story begins in the late 1880s, a time when archaeology in America was still a frontier science. Across the country, curious explorers and local farmers were unearthing mounds, ancient burial sites scattered across the land. Some of these belonged to cultures historians called the mound builders, groups whose identities and origins still puzzle researchers today. In Sayre, a group of men set out to excavate one such mound. They expected pottery shards, maybe tools, or bones worn down by centuries underground. And they did find bones, but the skeletons they uncovered did not match what anyone thought they would see. According to the reports, the skeletons were enormous, 7 feet tall, some said closer to 8. Even in today's world, such a height is remarkable. In the 19th century, it was almost unthinkable. These weren't just tall men, they were giants compared to their neighbors. And yet, even their unusual size wasn't the strangest part. That revelation came when one of the skulls was cleaned and lifted into the light, because there, protruding from just above the brow line, were 2 curved bony projections. Horns, not carvings, not masks, not adornments, bone, fused to the skull. As if whoever these beings were, they had been born that way. Imagine the shock. Picture the silence of the men as they stared at something that simply should not exist. You can almost feel that mix of wonder and dread, as though the ground had opened a door to some chapter of human history no one was prepared to read. News of the discovery traveled quickly, as it often did in those days, passed from mouth to mouth, then to the local newspapers. Articles spoke of horned giants, strange beings from a forgotten age. Some readers dismissed it as wild fantasy, but others leaned in close, whispering theories by lamplight. Were these the Nephilim of the Bible, the giants said to be born of angels and humans? Were they demons, cursed creatures who once walked the earth? Or were they proof of an advanced and mysterious race, erased from history but leaving behind echoes in bone? For a short while, Sayre became a place of fascination. But fascination soon gave way to secrecy. The bones, according to most versions of the story, were carefully packed up and shipped away. Some said they were sent to Philadelphia's American Investigating Museum. Others insisted they were claimed by the Smithsonian Institution. And then, they vanished. No display, no records, no photographs that could be verified. Just silence. And here's where the mystery deepens. Because when something is proven false, it's usually exposed with evidence. But when something vanishes entirely, it leaves behind a void. And into that void, speculation grows. Skeptics argue that the horned skulls never existed at all, that the 19th century was filled with exaggerated tales of giant skeletons unearthed across the United States, that newspapers thrived on sensational stories, and the Sayre skulls were nothing more than a convenient fabrication. After all, without physical evidence, what can we really prove? But believers push back. They point out the suspicious disappearance of the remains. If it was all a hoax, why did the bones vanish instead of being displayed or debunked? They argue that powerful institutions, like the Smithsonian, had reasons to suppress discoveries that challenged accepted history. After all, if giants with horns once walked North America, it would upend everything we think we know about the human past. It would suggest myths and legends carried more truth than we're comfortable admitting. So the story lingers, half buried, half whispered, a tale trapped between fact and legend, where memory and imagination blur together. Was Sayre home to a race of giants? Did horned humans really live among ancient peoples? Or was it all a story that grew larger with each retelling, like a campfire tale passed down across generations? The frustrating part is how close we feel to answers, and yet how far they remain. If the skulls were real, they would change the way we view human history. They would connect folklore to the ground beneath our feet. They would prove that the past holds surprises so vast that even our myths can't contain them. But because the bones are gone, we are left with only the words, words on yellowed newspaper clippings, words passed in hushed voices. And maybe that's the most unsettling part, because silence itself can be a kind of evidence. Silence suggests someone, somewhere, wanted this forgotten. Tonight, as you think of Sayre, picture those rolling hills in the moonlight. Imagine the earth holding on to its secrets, waiting for the right hands to uncover them. Somewhere beneath us, perhaps, still lie traces of beings who don't fit neatly into our textbooks. Beings who challenge our ideas of what it means to be human. Giants with horns, shapes from legend, frozen in bone. The three-eyed idol of Malta. The sun rising slowly over the Mediterranean Sea, casting a golden glow on the limestone cliffs and narrow streets of Malta. The air is warm, scented faintly with salt, herbs, and the faint echo of history. Beneath this serene landscape lies a world of ancient mysteries, remnants of civilizations that predate written records, whose stories are whispered in stone, in artifacts, and in the quiet hum of time itself. Among these relics, one stands out, a small, enigmatic figure carved from stone, unlike anything else found on the islands, the three-eyed idol of Malta. At first glance, it is simple, a humanoid shape, small in stature, but there is something almost hypnotic about it. Three eyes stare out from its face, evenly spaced, watching not just the visitor, but the world itself. It is as if the idol sees more than we can, glimpsing the hidden currents of the earth, the shifting of time, the subtle movements of human thought and action. The discovery of the idol is said to have been centuries ago, found during the excavation of a megalithic temple complex. Archaeologists were uncovering the foundations of a civilization that existed thousands of years before our modern era, yet had built structures of remarkable sophistication and alignment. Temples carved from massive limestone blocks, altars and ceremonial chambers, hinting at rituals whose meanings remain mysterious even today. And amidst all of this, the idol was found, carefully placed, preserved, and strangely alive in its presence. The craftsmanship is remarkable. Its three eyes are carved deep into the stone, each one aligned in a way that suggests intention, perhaps symbolism beyond our understanding. Some researchers speculate that the third eye represents spiritual insight, an ancient acknowledgement of perception beyond the physical. Others suggest it may have been a deity, a guardian figure, or a talisman meant to watch over sacred ceremonies and the people who entered the temple. As you imagine it, notice the texture of the stone, smooth in some places, weathered in others, each indentation carrying the fingerprints of a culture long vanished. Its body is simple, almost abstract, yet there is presence in its form. Even centuries later, standing before it, one can feel a quiet weight of intention, as if the stone itself remembers the hands that shaped it, the prayers it witnessed, the ceremonies it presided over. Malta's ancient temples, where the idol was found, are among the oldest freestanding structures in the world. They predate even the pyramids of Egypt, yet they are not built for grandeur in the way we often think of it. Their purpose was intimate, spiritual, connected to daily life, birth, death, and the cycles of nature. And the three-eyed idol sits quietly within this world, a silent observer, a bridge between the human and the divine, the seen and the unseen. Historians and archaeologists have debated the idol's purpose for generations. Was it a deity, a protective charm, a symbol of knowledge and perception? Perhaps it was all of these things. Some scholars suggest that the three eyes allowed it to see past, present, and future, a spiritual sentinel, guiding its people through cycles of harvest, life, and death. Others think it may have represented the unity of mind, body, and spirit, an ancient philosophical concept carved into stone for eternity. Imagine standing before it yourself, the Mediterranean sun low in the sky, casting long shadows across the temple ruins. You reach out, almost instinctively, to touch the cold stone. The surface is solid, unyielding, yet there is something almost alive in its gaze. Your mind begins to wander, imagining the rituals that took place here, the soft chants, the beating of drums, the scent of incense and herbs curling through the stone chambers. Perhaps priests held it in their hands, offering prayers to unseen forces. Perhaps it watched silently as the people celebrated birth, honored the dead, and sought guidance for the uncertain future. And yet, there is a quiet melancholy in the idol's presence. It has seen civilizations rise and fall, temples built and crumbled, knowledge lost and rediscovered. It has outlasted generations, yet it is powerless to speak, powerless to tell its story. All that remains is the stillness, the gaze, and the sense that it has witnessed everything, a quiet, eternal observer of human life and human impermanence. As you let your imagination drift through the temple chambers, think of the countless hands that once passed by it, the countless eyes that looked upon it, and the countless generations who may have sought guidance, protection, or understanding from its three watchful eyes. It is a bridge across time, connecting you, in this moment, to a people long gone, whose intentions and fears were much like our own. Tonight, As you reflect on the three-eyed idol of Malta, allow your mind to wander slowly through ancient stone corridors, past sacred altars, and over sun-warmed limestone floors. Hear the echo of chanting, feel the weight of history, and imagine the idol's three eyes following every movement, absorbing every emotion, holding centuries of memory within its carved stone form. Let it remind you that even in silence, there is observation, understanding, and a quiet persistence that lasts far beyond individual lives. The ash-covered lovers. Imagine walking through the warm, sunlit streets of an ancient Roman city. The air carries the faint scent of baked clay, sun-warmed stone, and distant smoke from the hearths where families prepare their meals. Children run along narrow alleys, their laughter echoing off walls adorned with faded frescoes, telling stories of gods, heroes, and everyday life. Merchants call out their wares, pottery, fabrics, fresh fruit, fish from the nearby sea. The city is alive, pulsing with the ordinary rhythms of human life. Yet, as history will reveal, it is also poised on the edge of an unimaginable catastrophe. Pompeii, in the year 79 AD, was a city like any other, vibrant, full of ambition, love, and mundane joys. People walked its streets with purpose, met their neighbors, shared meals, and whispered secrets behind closed doors. Among them, countless stories unfolded, small acts of kindness, fleeting glances, stolen moments of joy, and somewhere among all these stories, two lives intertwined, two hearts beating in quiet harmony, unaware that the world was about to change forever. Mount Vesuvius had been silent for centuries, its slopes covered in greenery, its presence a background hum rather than a threat. But beneath its surface, fire and pressure were building, slowly, inexorably, a sleeping giant waiting to awaken. In the early hours of that fateful day, the first tremors began, subtle at first, almost imperceptible underfoot. Windows rattled, doors shook. Some citizens paused, curious. Others ignored it, accustomed to the occasional rumble. But soon the air thickened with a faint smell of sulfur, and a thin veil of smoke began to rise from the distant peak. People whispered. Nervous murmurs spread through the markets and homes. A few brave souls climbed hills to see the source, only to return with tales of a strange, dark cloud above the mountain, moving slowly, ominously. Yet life continued, as life always does, until the first heavier ash began to fall. Light at first, like dust drifting on a gentle breeze, then thicker, heavier, darkening the sun and turning midday into dusk. Panic began to ripple. Mothers called for children. Fathers grabbed what they could. Dogs barked. Horses neighed. And the streets became a river of urgency and fear. Amid this chaos, our two lovers moved together through the crowd. Perhaps they held hands instinctively. Perhaps they clung to each other, finding solace in one another's presence. Maybe they had spent years building a life together. Or maybe their story was young, just beginning, fragile as the petals of a flower. And yet, in this fleeting moment, nothing mattered except the warmth and presence of the other. Their eyes met. Words left unspoken, gestures simple but profound. A brush of a hand, a protective arm, a leaning shoulder. Humanity distilled into pure connection. The eruption grew fiercer. Ash fell like a relentless snowstorm, fine and suffocating. Stones and volcanic debris rained from the sky, smashing roofs, overturning carts, and filling the air with a suffocating heat. People ran, stumbled, shouted, some seeking shelter, others searching for loved ones. And somewhere among the chaos, the couple sought each other, moving through the thickening gloom, guided by instinct, fear, and an unspoken promise to stay together. Time slowed, or perhaps it felt slowed to those who lived it. Hearts racing, breaths shallow, yet in their embrace there was a strange stillness, a momentary bubble of calm in the storm, a shared courage against the inevitable. And then, as the ash settled ever more densely, they found themselves overtaken, the city around them dissolving into a gray, suffocating haze. There was no escape, no rescue, only the final act of connection, holding each other close, faces near, hands intertwined, bodies pressing warmth against warmth. Centuries later, archaeologists would uncover the story. Beneath meters of volcanic ash and pumice, human forms emerged, impressions, shadows of life preserved by the sudden, catastrophic burial. Among these, the lovers of Pompeii were found, their forms captured in plaster, their embrace frozen in time, not lying apart, not reaching for anything else, but clinging to each other in a final act of intimacy and protection. Every curve of a body, every tilt of a head, every folded hand, preserved like a whisper from the past. As you picture them, notice the subtle details, the way one figure leans in, as if offering reassurance, the way the other curls instinctively, trusting, leaning into the warmth of the other's presence. Even in death, even in disaster, the human heart seeks connection. It seeks comfort, warmth, and closeness. It is ordinary, yet extraordinary, as if love itself refuses to be erased by the cruelty of fate. And imagine the city itself, a silent witness, the streets, now empty, the homes hollow, the markets abandoned, the frescoes, once vibrant, now muted under layers of ash. Yet the city speaks, not in sound, but in memory, in the traces of human life captured forever in the volcanic tomb. Pots, tools, jewelry, the smallest tokens of daily existence, all frozen, telling their own stories of ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. There is a quiet lesson here, that life is fragile, yes, but that human emotion, connection, and love endure. That even in catastrophe, even in the face of unstoppable natural forces, what we feel, who we hold, and how we choose to be present matters. The lovers of Pompeii remind us of this, not as heroes, not as legends, but as two people who simply loved each other, holding on when the world fell away. And as you imagine this story tonight, let your mind drift slowly over Pompeii's streets. Hear the faint echoes of life long gone, a merchant's call, a child's laughter, a whispered promise. Feel the weight of the ash settling gently, like a soft blanket, preserving what was, teaching what is. Picture the lovers, timeless in their embrace, a testament to humanity's most enduring instincts, love, empathy, and connection. The eruption ended, the city was buried, and centuries passed, yet here they remain, silent, serene, a reminder that even when life is fleeting, love can become eternal. And as you let this vision linger, notice how it drifts slowly through your mind, carrying you into a calm, reflective, almost dreamlike state. Feel the warmth of their connection, the quiet persistence of memory, and let it guide you, gently toward rest. The snake-wrapped skeleton. Quiet forest, just as the sun begins to fade. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of damp earth, moss, and leaves that have been rotting slowly for decades, centuries perhaps. The ground is soft underfoot, uneven with roots and fallen branches. Somewhere beneath this forest floor, hidden for hundreds or even thousands of years, a story has waited in silence, patiently for someone to uncover it. Archaeologists, explorers of the past, sometimes stumble upon these stories in fragments, bones, pottery, jewelry, or strange remnants of human life long vanished. But occasionally, a discovery defies ordinary expectations, a moment that makes you pause, almost holding your breath in reverence. Such was the case with the snake-wrapped skeleton. Imagine the scene. Tools in hand, hands brushing away centuries of soil. The first bones emerge, fragile, yet resilient against the pressure of time. They are not alone. Wrapped around them, coiled protectively, are the remains of snakes, either real, preserved by the unique conditions of the burial, or artistically represented, sculpted or molded with deliberate care. The skeleton is fetal, curled as if in eternal sleep, yet the snakes are intertwined across limbs, torso, and neck. Their presence is not violent, not aggressive, but deliberate, ritualistic, symbolic. What does this mean? Why entwine the dead with serpents? Throughout history, snakes have held countless meanings. They are symbols of transformation, rebirth, guardianship, and mystery. To lie alongside a serpent, or to be wrapped within its coils, suggests that the person was being protected, guided, or transformed. Perhaps the snake was meant to help them cross into the afterlife. Perhaps it was a spiritual guardian, watching over their passage from life to death. Or maybe it was a symbol, a connection between the natural and human world, reminding us that life and death are intertwined, like the coils around this skeleton. Picture the first archaeologist who uncovered this tomb, kneeling in the earth, brushing soil from the bones, noticing the careful positioning of each coil, each curve. A rib is revealed, a hand, a skull, and then the eye is caught by the smooth, deliberate shape of a snake wrapped around a wrist, around a leg. Breath catches, silence falls. There is awe, disbelief, and a profound sense of connection to someone who lived centuries before. And then imagine the person themselves. Long gone, their life now a mystery, their every step, every thought, every touch, lost to time. And yet, through this burial, through the careful wrapping of serpents, something survives: intention, meaning, care. The hands that once grasped objects, reached for loved ones, performed the mundane acts of daily life, now preserved in ritual, honored by the presence of the snake. The forest seems to pause around this moment. Leaves rustle softly in the breeze. Birds are silent. The archaeologist steps back, allowing the earth to breathe. And here, in the shadow of the past, the present, and the long-gone intertwine. You can almost hear whispers of ancient rituals, chants carried softly through the forest, the faint scent of incense or herbs drifting along the cool air, guiding the soul of the deceased and sanctifying their passage. Some scholars debate whether the snakes were real or symbolic. Perhaps the snakes were once living guardians, placed beside the dead, revered and protected. Perhaps they were sculpted representations, wrought from bronze, clay, or stone. Either way, the symbolism is profound. The snakes curve around the body, not to harm, but to protect and to sanctify. They are guardians of the soul, keepers of the secret that life is temporary, but memory and ritual can be eternal. Now let your imagination linger on the details. The way one snake curves over a shoulder, its head resting near the chest, silent and serene. The other coils delicately around the waist, body forming a gentle spiral, fingers frozen in position, palms lightly touching. Every curve, every gesture, seems deliberate, infused with meaning. There is intimacy here, a quiet tenderness, a recognition that death is not the end, but a passage, a transition, carefully marked and preserved by ritual. As the archaeologists document the find, taking photographs, making casts, carefully noting every detail, the forest around them deepens into quiet. Time feels suspended. You can almost feel the heartbeat of history. Faint, steady, persistent. And then, slowly, your mind drifts further, imagining the life this person may have had. Their daily routines, their joys, their small pleasures, the people they loved, the hands they reached with. And now, in this eternal rest, they are still cared for, still honored, still connected, through the serpents that coil protectively around them. There is a humbling quality to the discovery. To witness this intertwining of human and serpent is to glimpse something sacred, fragile and eternal. It reminds us that across time, humans have sought ways to understand life, death, and what comes after. That ritual, symbolism, and reverence persist even when the people themselves have vanished. That in every culture, in every era, there is a desire to connect, to honor, to protect. Now imagine standing over the burial again. As night falls, the forest deepens into darkness. Shadows lengthen. The bones and the serpents glint faintly under the pale moonlight. There is no fear here, only reverence. The snakes are calm, the skeleton serene. It is a tableau of life remembered, of death honored, and of meaning preserved against the relentless march of time. Tonight, as you think of the snake-wrapped skeleton, let your mind wander slowly through the forest. Feel the soft earth underfoot. Hear the faint whisper of leaves. Imagine the delicate, coiled guardians embracing the deceased, protecting, guiding, and honoring them. Let the story drift through your thoughts like a soft river, carrying you gently, quietly, into reflection and calm. And as your breathing slows, let the image linger, human and serpent intertwined, past and present meeting in silence, ritual and reverence carrying meaning beyond centuries. Let it guide your mind into stillness, allowing your thoughts to soften, your imagination to drift, and your body to relax, cradled by the gentle, eternal rhythm of history itself. The salt mummies of Iran. The Iranian desert is a harsh and unforgiving landscape. Endless plains of mineral-streaked earth, jagged cliffs and valleys scorched by centuries of sun create a land where only the resilient survive. Yet, hidden beneath this stark environment, nature has preserved one of the most extraordinary glimpses into ancient human life, the salt mummies. These figures are encased in crystalline salt, perfectly preserved for thousands of years, revealing a story of ritual, mortality, and the delicate balance between life and the elements. The discovery of the salt mummies occurred during mining operations in remote salt deposits. Workers uncovering the white, glittering layers of mineral sometimes stumbled upon figures that seemed almost impossible, bodies intact, with skin, hair, and clothing preserved in astonishing detail. Unlike Egyptian mummies, which were intentionally embalmed, these bodies had been preserved entirely by their environment. The high concentration of salt acted as a natural preservative, drawing moisture from the surrounding tissues and arresting decay entirely. The posture of the mummies is striking. Many were found in curled, fetal positions, as if sleep and death were intertwined. Limbs are tucked, heads bowed slightly, and garments remain visible, sometimes embroidered, sometimes simple and worn. The salt crystallization forms a protective shell over the body, encasing every detail of hair, facial structure, and even fingernails. The sight is both haunting and beautiful, offering an unbroken connection to the individuals who once lived in this land. Researchers began to analyze the mummies in meticulous detail. Their clothing, tools, and the remnants of their daily lives provide insight into the society they belonged to. Simple sandals, woven garments, and small personal items suggest a people accustomed to harsh conditions, yet capable of intricate craft. Forensic studies reveal aspects of diet, health, and even cause of death. Some show signs of sudden accidents or entrapment, perhaps while mining or during a sandstorm. Others suggest intentional placement in the salt deposits, hinting at ritual practices. The salt itself is a remarkable medium. It preserves with unparalleled fidelity, halting decomposition while remaining chemically stable for millennia. Unlike soil, which erodes and corrodes, the salt deposits effectively seal the body from the elements. Hair remains dark and glossy, Skin retains a leathery, almost lifelike quality, and even the folds of clothing remain discernible. In some cases, mummies are found side by side, suggesting communal burial practices or familial ties, a tableau of an entire community preserved in crystalline stone. What is perhaps most compelling is the intimacy of the preservation. These are not skeletons or fragmented remains, these are individuals frozen in a moment, each detail offering subtle clues about who they were. The lines of the face, the curve of a hand, the tilt of the head, all speak to personality, emotion, and presence long after the individual has perished. Scholars have spent countless hours documenting and cataloging these features, recognizing that the salt mummies are more than archaeological finds, they are windows into human experience itself. The environment played an essential role in their preservation. The arid climate, mineral-rich soil, and the density of the salt deposits all combined to create conditions where the human body could be arrested in time. The lack of humidity prevents microbial activity. The salt draws out moisture, and chemical interactions between body tissues and minerals preserve the mummified form. It is an extraordinary natural phenomenon, a collaboration between the harshness of the desert and the resilience of the human body. These mummies also reveal traces of daily life. Clothing fibers are still visible under close inspection. Some show signs of wear from labor or travel. Others were carefully crafted, suggesting status or cultural significance. Personal items, sometimes small tools or amulets, accompany the bodies, hinting at beliefs in protection, afterlife, or spiritual guidance. These subtle inclusions open a window into the values and priorities of the people who lived and died here. Scientific studies have revealed fascinating insights into their diet and health. Isotopic analysis of hair and bones shows evidence of local crops, animal protein, and mineral intake, allowing researchers to reconstruct their nutritional habits. Signs of illness, injury, or healed fractures offer glimpses into the hardships endured. Some mummies show traces of trauma consistent with sudden events, collapses, accidents, or environmental hazards, reinforcing the precarious nature of life in such unforgiving terrain. Yet, despite the scientific understanding, many questions remain. Why were some bodies intentionally placed in certain positions or locations? Were they part of ritual practice, or accidental victims preserved by circumstance? What role did salt play culturally, beyond its preservative properties? Archaeologists continue to study these questions, piecing together fragments of an ancient civilization that has otherwise left little trace. The visual impact of the mummies is profound. Standing before one, the preservation is so detailed that it evokes the presence of life itself. The expressions on their faces, frozen yet calm, the folds of garments, and the posture of the body convey a sense of humanity that transcends millennia. Every contour and texture tells a story, bridging the gap between present and past, allowing a fleeting glimpse of individuals whose existence would otherwise have been erased by time. The salt mummies of Iran are more than historical artifacts. They are a testament to the interaction between nature and human existence, the fragility and resilience of life, and the enduring imprint of ritual and culture. Each body carries the weight of centuries, a silent record of adaptation, survival, and mortality in one of the harshest landscapes on Earth. Their preservation challenges our understanding of time and decay, inviting reflection on the passage of life and the mechanisms that allow memory to endure. In studying the mummies, archaeologists also reconstruct the larger social and environmental context. Salt mining, trade, daily life, and spiritual beliefs all converge in these discoveries. Communities that once inhabited this desert environment adapted to its extremes, balancing survival with cultural expression. The salt mummies are the most intimate record of that human story, capturing life, death, and ritual in a medium that defies ordinary decay. Over the decades, the salt mummies have drawn attention from museums, researchers, and the public alike. Careful preservation and study allow them to remain intact for continued observation, while advanced imaging techniques and chemical analysis reveal layers of information invisible to the naked eye. Each discovery contributes to a growing understanding of human adaptation, belief systems, and interaction with extreme environments, deepening our appreciation for resilience and ingenuity across centuries. The mummies also serve as a reminder of the complex relationship between humans and the natural world. Salt, a simple mineral, becomes a guardian, preserving forms that would otherwise vanish. Life and death, culture and environment, mortality and eternity, all are entwined in crystalline layers, offering lessons and reflections for those willing to observe, study, and contemplate. Through careful examination, patterns emerge. Some mummies were buried alone, others in small clusters. Clothing and personal items indicate social structure, trade networks, and cultural priorities. Even the positioning of the bodies suggests intentionality, rituals that spoke to beliefs about the afterlife, protection, or remembrance. Each detail adds depth to the understanding of a people who lived in harmony and conflict with their environment. leaving behind a preserved narrative in salt and stone. The salt mummies of Iran endure as a striking testament to history, resilience, and the intersection of human life with natural forces. Their presence allows an unparalleled window into the past, offering both tangible scientific insights and subtle humanized understanding of lives lived millennia ago. They remain silent witnesses to the triumphs, struggles, and rituals of ancient people, preserved by the earth in a crystalline embrace that defies time and decay. The masked twin skull of Peru. High in the Andean mountains of Peru, amidst terraces carved into steep cliffs and windswept valleys dotted with remnants of ancient civilizations, lies one of archaeology's most enigmatic finds, the masked twin skull. Discovered in a burial site that has puzzled researchers for decades, this artifact is unlike any other. Two human skulls bound together, intricately decorated with ceremonial masks, preserved for centuries, and speaking to a culture steeped in ritual, symbolism, and reverence for life and death. The initial discovery occurred during an excavation of a pre-Columbian burial site. Local villagers and archaeologists working in the region noticed a peculiar arrangement of bones buried beneath layers of earth. Among ordinary skeletal remains were two skulls, seemingly joined at the sides, their forms intertwined in a manner that defied ordinary mortuary practices. What immediately captured attention was the presence of ornate masks, carefully molded and fitted over each skull. These masks, made from clay, precious metals, and pigments, retained intricate designs depicting symbolic motifs, perhaps deities, protective spirits, or ancestral figures. Scholars quickly recognized that the twin skull arrangement was highly unusual. Twin burials are known in some cultures, but the deliberate binding and masking of these individuals suggested a ritual of profound significance. Anthropologists theorized that this could represent a spiritual concept, duality, balance, protection in the afterlife, or the merging of souls. The Andean civilizations often emphasized the relationship between the living and the dead, between the human and the divine, and between the physical and spiritual realms. The masked twin skull fits perfectly within this worldview, acting as a bridge between worlds. The masks themselves are remarkable works of craftsmanship. Made with detailed precision, they feature patterns and symbols reminiscent of textile designs found elsewhere in Andean archaeology. Geometric shapes, depictions of animals, and symbolic motifs suggest that the masks were more than mere decoration, they were vessels of meaning. The pigments used have survived remarkably well, with reds, blacks, and ochres still vivid, hinting at the careful rituals that surrounded their creation and placement. The twin skulls raise many questions. Were these individuals related? Were they born as twins, or chosen to be paired in death? Skeletal analysis reveals that the skulls are of similar age, likely contemporaneous, but the specific reason for their joining remains a mystery. Some researchers suggest that they may have been individuals of special status, shamans, spiritual leaders, or members of an elite group tasked with ceremonial duties. Others propose that the pairing reflects a belief system in which duality was sacred, male and female, life and death, earth and sky, all intertwined through ritual practice. Archaeologists have also examined the placement of these skulls within the larger burial site. They were found in proximity to ceremonial artifacts, small figurines, pottery vessels, and ritual objects, each meticulously arranged. This contextual evidence suggests a broader ritualistic practice, rather than an isolated anomaly. It paints a picture of a society where death was deeply ceremonial, intertwined with symbolism, and carefully orchestrated to reflect spiritual beliefs. The preservation of the skulls and masks is extraordinary. Despite centuries underground, the materials remain largely intact. Soil composition, altitude, and dry conditions of the Andean highlands contributed to the remarkable survival of the artifacts. The masks, once vibrant, still display details that offer insight into the artistic and spiritual priorities of the people who created them. Each carved line, each painted stroke, holds a story that modern researchers are still deciphering. Forensic analysis has provided additional insights. The skulls show evidence of careful handling and preparation prior to burial. Some markings suggest minor modifications, perhaps to fit the masks precisely, or to align the skulls for ceremonial purposes. These modifications were not destructive but intentional, demonstrating respect and ritual care. The arrangement emphasizes symmetry, balance, and aesthetic presentation, reinforcing the notion that these burials were highly significant within the cultural and spiritual framework of the society. The discovery of the masked twin skull challenges contemporary understandings of Andean mortuary practices. Most known burials involve single individuals, sometimes accompanied by grave goods. Rarely do we find paired or twin arrangements, especially with such elaborate masking. This suggests that the individuals represented a unique status or fulfilled a ceremonial role that demanded special treatment in death. It may also reflect philosophical beliefs about duality and the interconnectedness of souls, concepts prevalent in Andean cosmology. Historians have also considered parallels between these twin burials and mythological or symbolic traditions in the region. The Andean peoples often integrated myth into daily life, and their funerary practices frequently reflected cosmological concepts. Twin burials, symbolic pairing, and elaborate masks may represent a physical manifestation of these beliefs, a tangible embodiment of spiritual ideas about balance, protection, and guidance in the afterlife. The twin skulls also offer a glimpse into material culture. The masks provide insight into artistic techniques, pigment composition, and symbolic literacy. Archaeologists analyze clay sources, firing techniques, and pigment minerals to understand trade, resource availability, and technological proficiency. These details, while technical, enrich our understanding of a society capable of sophisticated craftsmanship, spiritual expression, and symbolic communication. In addition to their physical and artistic significance, the masked twin skull prompts reflection on mortality, ritual, and the human desire to honor the dead. The act of masking and binding the skulls suggests a belief that physical preservation, aesthetic treatment, and symbolic representation are ways to maintain connection with the spiritual realm. It illustrates a society where death was not an end, but a continuation, a passage into a carefully constructed cosmic order. Modern researchers continue to study these artifacts, employing advanced imaging, 3D reconstruction, and chemical analysis to glean further insight. Every examination reveals subtle details, microcracks, pigment layering, wear patterns that illuminate how the masks were applied, how the skulls were positioned, and how ritual practice shaped the material outcome. Each finding brings us closer to understanding the intentions, beliefs, and artistry of an ancient civilization that spoke to life, death, and the spiritual world in ways that still resonate today. The masked twin skull remains a symbol of mystery and fascination. It challenges assumptions, inspires awe, and offers an intimate connection to a culture that revered ritual, artistry, and the intertwining of souls. Through careful study, we gain not only historical knowledge, but also an appreciation for the depth of thought, symbolism, and cultural sophistication of the people who created it. In the Andean highlands, amid stone terraces and windswept valleys, the legacy of the masked twin skull endures. It speaks across centuries, bridging human lives separated by time, yet united through ritual, artistry, and reverence for the sacred. This remarkable discovery continues to inspire research, reflection, and wonder, reminding us of the intricate ways in which humans have celebrated, honored, and connected with those who came before. The inkstones of forgotten scripts. In the quiet corners of ancient civilizations where scholars once studied and scribes labored over their parchments, exist objects that tell stories beyond the written word, inkstones. These were not just tools for writing, they were vessels of memory, bridges connecting human thought to material form. Among the most intriguing are the inkstones of forgotten scripts, artifacts that carry traces of languages and knowledge now largely lost to time. The discovery of these inkstones often occurs in ruins, abandoned monasteries, or old libraries where sunlight filters through wooden shutters onto dust-covered floors. Each inkstone carries a unique form. Some are simple, utilitarian objects, others are elaborately carved, adorned with dragons, celestial symbols, or abstract patterns. They were both tools and objects of art, cherished possessions passed down through generations. Inkstones served a practical purpose, grinding solid ink with water to create the liquid pigment necessary for writing. Yet beyond functionality, they were vessels of cultural memory. On their surfaces, faint scratches and residues hint at the scripts once written, lines of poetry, records, or philosophical musings, now mostly lost. Some of these scripts are undecipherable today, preserved only in the impressions and traces left behind. Some inkstones were intentionally hidden or buried. Perhaps they held knowledge considered sacred or too valuable to risk during periods of upheaval. Each discovery is a doorway to the past, offering evidence of intellectual life centuries ago. Even the wear patterns on the stones tell a story. Repeated strokes of a brush, decades of study, the care of a scholar devoted to recording thoughts. The design of the inkstones reflects cultural priorities. Smooth surfaces allowed the brush to glide without damage. Reservoirs collected liquid ink. Carvings and motifs conveyed aesthetic beauty or symbolic meaning. Each detail provides clues about the society that produced it, its values, philosophy, and reverence for literacy. When researchers analyze ink residues, they often employ chemistry and microscopy. Carbon-based pigments, plant extracts, and mineral compounds reveal the materials used, while pressure patterns hint at writing techniques. Even faint impressions can show whether multiple scribes collaborated over time or if the work was part of a ritual practice. The forgotten scripts themselves are tantalizing mysteries. Some may document religious texts, legal matters, or historical events. Others may record poetry or daily transactions. Each symbol, mark, and groove is a whisper from the past, hinting at ideas and stories we may never fully understand. Yet the act of uncovering, observing, and studying these stones brings us closer to the civilizations that once flourished. Beyond their historical value, inkstones are a testament to human dedication and artistry. Every mark, scratch, and residue reflects the labor of hands committed to preserving thought, communication, and memory. The objects remind us that knowledge is both fragile and enduring, and that tools like these carried the weight of human culture and learning. Inkstones also connect to broader social contexts. They illuminate education systems, literacy levels, and cultural appreciation for written knowledge. Their variations in size, decoration, and craftsmanship suggest different social statuses or ritual functions. Some were plain for everyday use. Others were ceremonial, perhaps used to train elite scribes or preserve particularly important texts. In examining these objects, we gain insight into how societies engaged with language and knowledge. The stones tell of a world where words mattered, where precision and care were essential, and where recording thought was both a practical and a deeply meaningful act. Even when the scripts themselves fade, the inkstones remain, testaments to human creativity and continuity. In studying the inkstones, scholars reconstruct aspects of intellectual life, writing techniques, tools, and the evolution of scripts. They reveal the intersection of material culture and abstract thought, showing how ideas were transmitted, preserved, and protected. They are tangible evidence of a civilization's intellectual and aesthetic sophistication. Ultimately, the inkstones of forgotten scripts are more than tools. They are silent witnesses to centuries of human curiosity, learning, and artistry. Each groove, each trace of ink, and each decorative motif carries centuries of history, connecting us to individuals who lived, studied, and recorded ideas long ago. They remind us of the enduring value of literacy, knowledge, and the human desire to preserve thought beyond a single lifetime. The charcoal teeth of the valley priest. In a remote valley carved by rivers and surrounded by mountains, where mists rise each morning, and the air is thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient stone, a mysterious discovery has long captured the curiosity of archaeologists and historians alike. The charcoal teeth of the valley priest. Found in an old burial site, these teeth, blackened, preserved, and intentionally modified with charcoal, offer a window into the spiritual, ritualistic, and symbolic practices of an ancient society whose culture was deeply intertwined with life, death, and the natural world. The discovery took place during the excavation of a series of tombs, each carefully constructed with stone slabs and earthen mounds. Among these, one burial stood out immediately. The skeleton of a priest, or perhaps a high-ranking spiritual figure, lay supine, surrounded by ceremonial objects, pottery, carved figurines, and tools of daily and ritual use. But what drew particular attention were the teeth. Unlike ordinary teeth, these had been intentionally treated with charcoal, darkened to a deep black, and polished to a smooth sheen. The purpose of the charcoal modification has been debated. Some scholars suggest it was a ritualistic practice, intended to mark the priest as a mediator between the living and the spiritual world. Others believe the treatment was symbolic, representing purification, protection, or a connection to ancestral spirits. In many cultures, modifications of the body, particularly of teeth, hands, or other visible features, were deliberate acts that conveyed identity, status, and spiritual alignment. The charcoal teeth are a striking example of this, merging aesthetics, ritual, and symbolism in a single enduring artifact. Archaeologists noted the precision with which the charcoal was applied. It was not random or accidental. The teeth were deliberately coated, polished, and maintained. Microscopic analysis suggests multiple layers of charcoal and careful burnishing, indicating repeated ritual action over time. This points to the priest's role not only as a spiritual leader, but also as someone whose body itself became a living emblem of ritual practice. The surrounding burial goods provide further insight. Small amulets, carved talismans, and ceremonial objects were placed around the priest, carefully arranged according to a pattern that likely held religious significance. The combination of objects, the care of placement, and the treatment of the teeth suggest a society in which spirituality permeated every aspect of life and death, and where physical modifications were extensions of cultural and religious belief. Charcoal teeth were not unique to this burial alone. Other sites in the region hint at a broader tradition of dental modification as part of ritual or social practice. Yet this particular discovery stands out for its exceptional preservation, the deliberate artistry of the treatment, and the context of the burial. Together, these factors provide a rare glimpse into the mindset of a culture where the human body, objects, and the environment were interwoven into a spiritual and symbolic system. The valley priest's teeth also offer clues about daily life and ritualized behavior. Charcoal may have been selected for its symbolic properties, black as a color of protection, transformation, or connection to the underworld. Its application required knowledge, care, and intention, indicating that the priest's preparation for ritual, life, or afterlife was deliberate, guided by established cultural norms and spiritual frameworks. Further study of the skeleton reveals additional layers of understanding. Wear patterns on the teeth suggest repeated use in ceremonial contexts, perhaps in chanting, consumption of ritual substances, or symbolic practices that involved the mouth. Analysis of surrounding soil, residues, and trace materials corroborates the idea that this individual participated in sustained ritual activity, and that the modification of the teeth was a marker of identity and role. The charcoal teeth are also a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability. Transforming a natural material like charcoal into a lasting symbolic feature required knowledge of both the material and its effects on the body. That the teeth remain visible, preserved across centuries, speaks to the skill of the practitioners and the intentionality of the cultural practice. In this way, the teeth are simultaneously an artistic, ritualistic, and anthropological artifact. Historians have drawn parallels between this practice and other forms of bodily modification in ancient societies. Tattooing, cranial shaping, scarification, and dental treatment all reflect an understanding of the body as a canvas for cultural, spiritual, and social expression. In the case of the valley priest, the charcoal teeth represent a permanent, visible statement of spiritual alignment, a transformation that marks both the living and the deceased as significant within their community. The surrounding valley provides context for the cultural worldview. Life in this mountainous, often harsh environment demanded resilience, adaptation, and a deep understanding of natural cycles. Spiritual leaders held knowledge of ritual, seasonal changes, and human-nature interaction. The charcoal teeth may have served as a symbol of mastery, authority, and connection, a visual and tangible marker of a person capable of navigating both the earthly and spiritual realms. Even after centuries, the charcoal teeth continue to inspire study and reflection. They challenge modern perceptions of ancient societies, demonstrating that even in distant times and remote regions, humans engaged in complex symbolic acts, valued identity and status, and expressed spiritual beliefs through deliberate modification of the body. Researchers use modern imaging, chemical analysis, and comparative anthropology to uncover the materials, techniques, and symbolic significance, slowly revealing the depth of knowledge, intention, and cultural richness encoded in this single ritual practice. The burial site also suggests broader ceremonial networks. Similar practices have been observed in nearby regions, hinting at the diffusion of ritual knowledge, trade of ceremonial materials, and cultural connections that spanned valleys, rivers, and mountain ranges. The valley priest's teeth, then, are not just an isolated practice, but part of a broader cultural and spiritual landscape that emphasizes ritual precision, social hierarchy, and the integration of symbolic modification into daily and ceremonial life. The charcoal teeth of the valley priest are a remarkable example of human creativity, ritual practice, and symbolic expression. They reveal how a single, small modification of the body can carry immense meaning, connect life and death, and preserve cultural identity. They speak across centuries, providing insight into a society in which spiritual leadership, ritual knowledge, and the human form were intricately interwoven. In examining these teeth, researchers and historians are reminded of the profound depth of ancient human practice, the care, intention, and artistry that went into transforming everyday life into a sacred, meaningful experience. Each blackened tooth is a testament to skill, belief, and the enduring human desire to create lasting symbols of identity, power, and connection to the spiritual realm. Through careful study, the valley priest and the charcoal teeth continue to illuminate aspects of a culture long gone but not forgotten. They demonstrate how even the smallest physical modification can reflect complex social and spiritual systems, offering a tangible link to lives, beliefs, and practices that have endured, hidden beneath the soil, waiting to tell their story across time. The jade needle of the steppe. Across the endless grasslands of Central Asia, where the horizon stretches in waves of green and gold, and the wind carries both the scent of wildflowers and the echo of ancient footsteps, lies a story preserved in stone, the jade needle of the steppe. Small in size, but immense in significance, this artifact has fascinated historians and archaeologists, offering insight into nomadic life, craftsmanship, and spiritual practice on the vast Eurasian plains. The jade needle was first discovered during a series of archaeological expeditions in the remote regions of the Eurasian steppe. Archaeologists excavating burial mounds or kurgans, often associated with early nomadic cultures, came across small, intricately carved pieces of jade, among them the needle, delicate, sharp, and polished to a brilliance that suggested it was more than a utilitarian tool. Its precision, and the effort required to craft it from jade, a notoriously hard stone, hinted at a purpose that transcended ordinary use. Jade itself has long been a stone of spiritual and cultural significance. Across Asia, jade was revered not only for its beauty, but for its association with longevity, purity, and the connection between the human and the divine. To carve a needle from this material required skill, patience, and immense dedication. The jade needle of the steppe reflects this combination of artistry and utility, bridging the practical needs of daily life with symbolic and ceremonial importance. Archaeologists studying the needle noted its extraordinary craftsmanship. Its tip is precise, its shaft perfectly balanced, and its surface smooth to the touch. Minute scratches suggest repeated use, yet the polish and shape remain intact, evidence of careful maintenance or a deliberate ceremonial purpose. Some researchers propose that it may have been used for textile work, stitching garments or ceremonial robes, while others argue for ritual significance, perhaps as a tool in spiritual rites, healing practices, or symbolic acts of power. The burial context provides further insight. The needle was often found alongside other artifacts, finely worked tools, beads, ornaments, and sometimes remnants of clothing. These accompanying items suggest that the individual interred with the jade needle held a position of importance, either socially, spiritually, or both. In nomadic cultures, grave goods were carefully selected to honor the deceased, provide for the journey into the afterlife, or symbolize status and identity. The needle's presence in such burials underscores its significance beyond mere function. Some interpretations suggest that the jade needle may have been an object of symbolic duality, both a practical tool and a talisman. Its fine craftsmanship and material value indicate prestige, while its form, needle-like and precise, hints at metaphysical or symbolic associations, connecting wearer, maker, or possessor with the broader spiritual and natural world. Scholars speculate that it may have represented precision, balance, or a channel for spiritual energy, an idea reflected in many nomadic belief systems that connected tools and objects with the forces of life and the cosmos. Jade needles like this also reveal the reach of trade and cultural interaction on the steppe. Jade is not native to every part of Central Asia. Sourcing, transport, and crafting required knowledge, skill, and networks of exchange. Each artifact speaks of mobility, connection, and the blending of practical and aesthetic considerations in nomadic life. Even a small object like a needle becomes evidence of larger systems of trade, social hierarchy, and cultural sophistication. Researchers also study microscopic traces on the needle's surface. Tiny residues of plant fibers, threads, or pigments reveal its use and function. These minute clues, almost imperceptible, allow archaeologists to reconstruct patterns of daily life, craft techniques, and ceremonial practice. Each scratch, each polish, tells a story of hands that handled it carefully, of skilled artisans shaping jade with patient precision, and of the role this object played in human life across centuries. The nomadic cultures of the Eurasian steppe were deeply intertwined with their environment. Horses, herding, and seasonal migrations shaped daily existence, but they also shaped cultural expression. Artifacts like the jade needle reflect this adaptation, portable, durable, and yet imbued with meaning. In such societies, objects were not merely tools, they carried identity, status, and symbolic weight. The needle is both practical and ceremonial, a testament to the ingenuity and spiritual awareness of these ancient people. Beyond its practical or ceremonial function, the jade needle embodies artistry. The labor to transform raw jade into a precise instrument is remarkable, given the hardness of the stone. Each movement, each abrasion of the carving process, required skill, patience, and an understanding of the material's properties. This is evidence of a culture that valued mastery, care, and the transformation of the natural into the refined, the utilitarian into the sacred. Modern analysis continues to reveal the needle's secrets. Chemical composition studies, microscopic imaging, and comparative archaeology all contribute to understanding the steppe's nomadic societies. Patterns of wear suggest repeated handling, careful use, and possible symbolic ritual. Its placement in burials indicates both respect and intention, as though the object carried the identity or essence of the person it accompanied. The jade needle also inspires reflection on the human relationship with tools, art, and symbolism. Even a small utilitarian object can carry immense meaning, a connection to identity, status, spirituality, and social structure. In this way, the needle represents not just the ingenuity of the individual artisan, but the worldview of a society that wove practical, aesthetic, and spiritual concerns into every crafted object. Its survival through centuries of exposure to soil, weather, and human movement is remarkable. That a delicate jade needle remains intact in burial mounds scattered across vast steppe regions speaks to both the durability of the material and the care taken by those who placed it in tombs. Each needle is a bridge across time, linking us with lives lived under open skies, where survival, artistry, and spirituality were intertwined in daily existence. The story of the jade needle of the steppe reminds us of the depth of human ingenuity. It reflects a society attuned to both practical needs and symbolic meaning, a culture capable of crafting beauty, precision, and functionality from the most challenging materials. Each needle offers a tangible connection to hands, minds, and beliefs of a distant past, allowing us to understand not only the material but the human experience it embodies. In the vastness of the Eurasian steppe, amid winds that sweep across grasslands and echo across valleys, the jade needle endures as a witness to human life. Small, precise, and delicate, it speaks of skill, ritual, artistry, and the enduring human desire to shape the world, to leave something behind, and to imbue objects with meaning that transcends time. It is a fragment of history, a testament to the ingenuity of those who lived and moved across the steppe, and a reminder that even the smallest objects can carry the weight of culture, belief, and human creativity across the centuries. The missing spine of the warrior king. In the heart of a rugged and ancient landscape, where stone fortresses cling to cliffs and winds whisper across long-abandoned battlefields, archaeologists uncovered a burial that has confounded historians and captivated imaginations. The resting place of a warrior king, whose skeleton told a story as dramatic as any legend, yet held a mystery no one could immediately explain. The spine was missing. The discovery occurred during excavations of a royal tomb in a region known for its historic conflicts and dynastic burials. Layers of stone and earth had preserved the remains in remarkable condition, offering a rare glimpse into the life and death of a figure whose power had once shaped a kingdom. The skeleton lay within a coffin, surrounded by weapons, ceremonial armor, and ornaments befitting royalty. Yet when the bones were carefully examined, experts noticed a startling absence. The vertebral column, the spine that had supported the body and facilitated motion, was gone. The missing spine immediately raised questions. Was it removed intentionally as part of a ritual? Could it have been taken by grave robbers seeking to desecrate or claim part of the king's remains? Or was it a symbolic gesture, a way to honor the warrior by separating the core of his physical strength from the rest of the body? Archaeologists carefully documented the site, noting that no other major bones were disturbed. The absence of the spine, precise and deliberate in its effect, suggested intention rather than accident. Historical accounts of the kingdom describe elaborate funerary practices, often blending martial symbolism with spiritual belief. Warriors, kings, and nobles were sometimes interred with objects representing power, protection, and authority. The presence of ceremonial swords, armor plates, and ornamental headdresses indicated that this burial followed such traditions, yet the missing spine added an element of deliberate enigma. Scholars theorized that the spine might have been ritually removed to signify the king's transcendence, his spirit liberated from the confines of the physical body, or to mark a transition into the afterlife, where his vitality would be symbolically redistributed. Examination of the skeleton reveals additional details. The warrior king was tall and robust, with evidence of both rigorous training and injuries sustained in battle. Muscle attachment points suggest extraordinary strength, reflecting a lifetime of combat and leadership. Facial features, preserved in part by burial conditions, hint at a stern yet commanding presence, and teeth indicate a diet consistent with a high-status individual, possibly supplemented with ritual offerings. Each detail reinforces the impression of a formidable figure, someone who commanded armies and inspired loyalty, yet whose death and burial contained deliberate mystery. Archaeologists also noted signs of careful preparation of the remains. The missing spine was not a crude extraction. Traces suggest precision in removal. Surrounding vertebrae, ribs, and other skeletal elements show no evidence of trauma that might indicate post-mortem disturbance by accident or decay. The implication is clear: this was a calculated act, carried out with knowledge and purpose, possibly by priests, attendants, or successors of the king. Cultural context provides further insight. Many ancient societies believed in the transformative power of certain bones, especially the spine, which was often considered the seat of vitality or life force. Removing the spine may have been intended to channel the king's power, preserve it for the community, or offer it as a sacred relic. In some traditions, specific bones were kept in shrines, used in ceremonial rites, or embedded in monuments to honor the deceased. The warrior king's spine, missing yet central to interpretation, opens a window into these complex belief systems, where the physical body and spiritual essence were closely intertwined. Historical parallels abound. Across civilizations, elite burials sometimes involved the deliberate separation of body parts for ritual, symbolic, or protective reasons. These acts were rarely intended to harm but to signify transcendence, safeguard sacred power, or maintain continuity between life and death. The missing spine, in this sense, is not a loss but a deliberate statement, an encoded message from a culture that treated death as a continuation of influence, authority, and identity. Analysis of artifacts surrounding the king's remains further enriches understanding. Weapons display intricate metallurgy. Ceremonial armor is adorned with motifs indicating divine favor or ancestral lineage, and offerings suggest a blend of martial and spiritual devotion. Together with the skeletal mystery, these items tell a story of a society in which rulership, warfare, and ritual were inseparable, and where symbolic acts in death reinforced cultural hierarchies and spiritual belief. The warrior king's burial also highlights the role of those who prepared him for eternity. Funerary specialists, priests, and attendants executed meticulous rites, blending technical skill with spiritual intent. The precision removal of the spine, the placement of artifacts, and the care of the remaining skeleton all indicate profound understanding of ritual practice, belief, and the symbolic resonance of the human form. For modern researchers, the missing spine continues to provoke questions and theories. Chemical and microscopic analysis of the burial site, careful mapping of bone fragments, and comparative studies with other royal burials have yet to provide definitive answers. Some suggest that the spine may have been interred elsewhere, forming part of a multi-location burial practice designed to link sacred sites or honor specific regions of the kingdom. Others believe it may have been destroyed, lost, or transformed into a ceremonial object whose fate remains unknown. Beyond the archaeological and historical significance, the story of the warrior king resonates on a human level. The missing spine embodies mystery, power, and reverence. It reminds us that ancient peoples had profound relationships with the body, ritual, and the afterlife, and that even in death, leaders could exert influence, communicate authority, and inspire awe. Every artifact, every placement, every absence is a statement, carefully orchestrated to convey meaning to both the living and the spirit world. The warrior king, through his missing spine and carefully arranged burial, challenges modern perspectives. He illustrates a culture in which symbolism, ritual, and identity were inseparable, where power and spirituality extended beyond the temporal life, and where physical remains could embody legacy, authority, and sacred energy. The mystery of the absent spine ensures that this burial continues to fascinate, inspiring reflection on ancient practices, human ingenuity, and the enduring power of ritual. Through meticulous excavation, study, and interpretation, researchers continue to piece together the life and death of this extraordinary figure. Each discovery, from the remaining bones to the surrounding artifacts, adds nuance and depth to the story, revealing a civilization capable of blending artistry, martial prowess, and spiritual sophistication. The missing spine is a silent, enigmatic witness, a puzzle that challenges assumptions and invites curiosity, standing at the intersection of history, ritual, and human imagination. The missing spine of the warrior king reminds us that even in death, leaders of the past shaped narratives, expressed beliefs, and left enduring legacies. The deliberate absence of a central skeletal element transforms a burial from a simple resting place into a profound statement, a story encoded in stone, bone, and ritual. It offers insight into a world where the physical body and spiritual essence were inseparable, and where mystery was as much a part of life and death as courage, skill, and leadership. The silver scroll of Ketef Hinnom, amid the rocky slopes and rugged hills of Jerusalem, where history layers itself upon itself in ways both visible and hidden, a remarkable discovery was made in the 1970s, a discovery that bridged the distant past with the sacred texts that would shape religious thought for millennia. Archaeologists uncovering a burial site at Ketef Hinnom, a hill to the southwest of the Old City, found something astonishing. 2 tiny silver scrolls, rolled tightly and inscribed with some of the oldest known passages that would later appear in the Hebrew Bible. The scrolls themselves are delicate, narrow strips of silver, each only a few centimeters long, yet their content is profound. Carefully etched onto the metal with extraordinary skill, these inscriptions contain blessings and names, prayers intended to protect and guide the living. The silver, a precious material even in ancient times, reflects both the value placed on the object and the importance of the messages it bore. Despite their small size, the scrolls are monumental in meaning, tiny artifacts that connect ordinary human devotion to enduring spiritual tradition. Excavation at Ketef Hinnom was painstaking. The burial caves in which the scrolls were discovered were dark, narrow, and complex, filled with the remnants of daily life and ritual from centuries ago. Archaeologists carefully documented each layer, each fragment, aware that even the smallest detail could reveal insight into ancient practices. The silver scrolls were tucked into leather or cloth pouches, a testament to the care with which these objects were treated. Analysis reveals the precision of the inscriptions. Every letter, every line, is etched with skill, reflecting a mastery of both writing and metalworking. The artisans responsible were clearly adept, capable of transforming raw silver into a vessel for sacred text. The act of inscribing metal, rather than more perishable materials like papyrus or parchment, ensured the message's longevity, an effort to preserve divine words beyond the lifespan of any individual. The text itself is a series of blessings, invoking protection, divine favor, and safety for the recipient. Scholars have drawn attention to the similarity of these inscriptions with passages that later appear in the Book of Numbers. This makes the scrolls not only valuable for understanding ancient material culture, but also profoundly significant for the history of religious thought, showing that some sacred traditions existed centuries before their canonical compilation. The Ketef Hinnom scrolls provide a tangible link between the spiritual lives of ancient people and the texts that continue to shape belief today. These were not abstract or impersonal objects, they were intimately connected with human concern, devotion, and hope. The inscriptions were created by hands that carefully crafted each word, intended to convey protection, reassurance, and blessing to someone they cared for, or for a community at large. Scholars also note the role of the scrolls within burial practice. These were not objects for display or mere ornamentation, placed with the deceased, or within a ritual context. The silver scrolls acted as conduits of protection, invoking divine oversight for the living and guidance for the dead. In a society where spiritual power and material artifacts were deeply intertwined, the scrolls embodied both human devotion and the sacred authority of the written word. The discovery of these scrolls at Ketef Hinnom altered our understanding of ancient Israelite culture. It demonstrated that literacy, religious practice, and personal devotion were intertwined long before the establishment of formalized religious texts. The scrolls show that belief and ritual were enacted not only in temples or public spaces, but also in private, personal acts, crafted, rolled, and carried as intimate tokens of faith. Chemical and metallurgical analysis of the silver reveals insights into trade and resource acquisition. The silver itself was likely mined and transported with care, reflecting networks of commerce and the value placed on sacred materials. The process of working silver, hammering, etching, and polishing, required technical skill and artistic sensibility, further emphasizing the intentionality and importance of the scrolls. The physicality of the scrolls enhances their spiritual message. Metal, enduring and resistant, becomes a vessel for human concern and sacred invocation. The inscriptions survive centuries, a testament to both the artisan's skill and the reverence with which they were treated. The very act of creation, careful etching on a precious metal, reflects a belief that words, properly formed and protected, can exert influence beyond the lifespan of any individual, carrying blessings across time. Ketef Hinnom itself, the burial site, adds further context. The rocky caves and hillside tombs reveal a society that invested effort in ritualized burial, blending physical protection, spiritual symbolism, and social status. The placement of these scrolls within graves demonstrates a worldview in which material objects could mediate between the living and divine, guiding and protecting through both presence and symbolism. The scrolls also illuminate the interconnectedness of ancient communities. Names, titles, and invocations on the silver connect individuals with familial, tribal, or religious identities, revealing a society deeply attuned to hierarchy, devotion, and continuity. Even in their diminutive form, the scrolls convey a complex web of relationships between person and deity, between family members, between past and future. Over the decades, continued study has enhanced understanding of the scrolls' importance. Microscopic imaging, chemical composition analysis, and comparison with later texts confirm their age, authenticity, and connection to broader traditions. Yet despite centuries of scholarship, the scrolls retain a quiet mystery. The personal stories behind each inscription, the individuals who commissioned them, and the hands that created them remain largely unknown. The silver scrolls of Ketef Hinnom are more than artifacts, they are a bridge across time. They connect modern viewers with ancient devotion, illustrating how human beings have sought to preserve faith, offer protection, and express care through material objects. The delicate craftsmanship, the enduring silver, and the spiritual content converge to create a profound example of ancient human intention, artistry, and belief. Through careful excavation and study, the scrolls continue to inspire reflection on the ways in which people in antiquity engaged with the sacred. They remind us that even small objects can hold immense significance, that devotion can be expressed in intricate craftsmanship, and that the human desire to connect with the divine transcends both time and circumstance. The silver scrolls of Ketef Hinnom endure as evidence of faith, etched into metal, prayers preserved for millennia, and a culture deeply invested in the intersection of material craftsmanship and spiritual aspiration. They invite us to consider how objects carry meaning, how devotion can be made tangible, and how the past continues to communicate with the present through the careful, deliberate acts of those who lived long before us. 10,000-year-old Mesolithic woman, face reborn in Belgium. In the heart of Europe, where rivers have carved valleys for millennia, and forests hide the footprints of civilizations long gone, archaeologists made a discovery that would bridge 10,000 years of human history. Deep beneath the soil of a Belgian site, in the remnants of a Mesolithic settlement, lay the skeletal remains of a woman. At first glance, she seemed like any ancient skeleton, bones worn by time, teeth eroded by centuries of survival, and traces of a life lived in harmony with the natural rhythms of her environment. But what made this find extraordinary was not only her age, approximately 10,000 years old, but the painstaking effort to reconstruct her face, to give the past a human expression, and connect modern observers to someone who lived and breathed in a world entirely unlike our own. Through advanced forensic techniques, digital imaging, and careful study of bone structure, scientists were able to recreate the contours of her face, the shape of her skull, and even subtle details like the slope of her nose and the curve of her jaw. The reconstructed face offers more than just physical resemblance, it opens a window into the Mesolithic period itself. This was a time when humans were transitioning from nomadic hunter-gatherers to more settled communities, experimenting with tools, crafting art, and developing social structures that would lay the foundation for the societies to come. Every ridge of her skull, every line mapped in reconstruction, carries traces of adaptation, survival, and the subtle hallmarks of life in a post-glacial Europe. Her teeth, for example, bear the marks of a diet rooted in the natural world: grains, nuts, wild fruits, and game. Wear patterns hint at how she used her teeth not only for eating but for other daily activities, perhaps crafting tools or processing materials. The skeleton as a whole reflects a life of movement, resilience, and interaction with a landscape shaped by rivers, forests, and the lingering effects of Ice Age climates. The process of face reconstruction itself is a delicate combination of science and artistry. Anthropologists and forensic specialists examine each bone, measuring depth, analyzing attachment points, and using comparative data from modern populations to predict the appearance of soft tissue. In this case, the goal was not to create a Hollywood version of the Mesolithic woman, but to honor her humanity, her uniqueness, and the life she led. Every contour, every shadow, and every line represents careful deduction based on biology, archaeology, and respect for the individual behind the remains. Beyond the physical reconstruction, this discovery resonates on a cultural and emotional level. For modern observers, seeing the face of someone who lived 10,000 years ago evokes a connection across vast stretches of time. It reminds us that despite differences in technology, language, and lifestyle, the human experience, fear, hope, creativity, and connection has endured. The Mesolithic woman is no longer a set of bones. She is a person who dreamed, worked, and moved through the world, leaving traces that scientists have now been able to interpret and share. Archaeologists also studied the context in which she was found. The burial site contained remnants of daily life, stone tools, flint blades, pottery fragments, and hearths. These artifacts speak to a community in transition, experimenting with new ways of obtaining food, producing art, and maintaining social bonds. The careful placement of her body and the associated objects suggest ritual and respect, indicating that her life held significance within the community and that her death was marked with attention to cultural tradition. Forensic and archaeological studies also reveal clues about her health, lifestyle, and challenges. Signs of healed injuries suggest resilience and survival. Traces of repetitive strain hint at the physical demands of Mesolithic life. Skeletal analysis indicates that she was likely in her late 20s or early 30s, an age considered mature and capable within her community. The reconstruction of her face gives a sense of character, not just anatomy, the set of her jaw, the shape of her eyes, and the subtle expressions that hint at her individuality. Modern techniques also allow scientists to explore her ancestry and genetics, shedding light on migration patterns, interrelations among Mesolithic groups, and how humans adapted to post-glacial Europe. Her DNA connects her to broader European populations of the time, revealing insights into diet, health, and lineage. This intersection of biology, archaeology, and technology transforms her from a set of remains into a story of life, adaptation, and continuity. The public unveiling of her reconstructed face has had a profound impact. People see a bridge across 10 millennia, a tangible reminder that history is not just a series of abstract events but the lived experiences of individuals. The image evokes empathy, curiosity, and reflection, offering a human face to the distant past and a reminder of the shared threads that bind all humans together. Every detail, from the slope of her brow to the subtle curve of her lips, has been carefully rendered to reflect what life may have been like in Mesolithic Belgium. The reconstruction prompts questions about daily life. What did she see as she walked along rivers and forests? What did she feel? What stories did she hear? What challenges did she face? The face is a portal into these questions, an invitation to imagine life in a time so remote, yet so intimately human. Scholars emphasize that such reconstructions are interpretations, built upon careful evidence but also guided by scientific inference. Yet the reconstruction does more than approximate appearance, it conveys humanity. The 10,000-year-old woman becomes a witness across time, a silent storyteller who allows us to glimpse the lived realities of her era. The significance of her discovery also lies in its ability to humanize prehistory. Often, discussions of the Mesolithic period focus on tools, settlement patterns, and subsistence strategies, but the reconstruction reminds us that these were people with faces, expressions, and lives filled with experience. Science, art, and archaeology converge to give voice to the silent remnants of the past, creating a connection that transcends millennia. Through her, we learn about resilience, adaptation, and the universality of human experience. The tools she left behind, the burial context, and the reconstructed visage combine to tell a story of ingenuity, social structure, and personal identity. She stands as a reminder that individuals mattered, that their lives were lived fully, and that even 10,000 years later, we can recognize their humanity. The Mesolithic woman's face in Belgium is not only a scientific achievement, it is a profound exercise in empathy, imagination, and historical continuity. By recreating her visage, we honor her existence, acknowledge the complexity of her society, and bring the distant past into a form that resonates with the present. It is an enduring reminder that every bone, every artifact, every human life carries stories waiting to be told. The reconstruction transforms abstract history into something tangible, bridging the gap between past and present. For archaeologists, anthropologists, and the public, her face embodies the possibilities of connection, understanding, and curiosity, reminding us that beneath layers of soil and time lie people whose lives were as rich and meaningful as our own. Tutankhamun's meteoric iron dagger, iron from the sky. Deep within the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter in the Valley of the Kings, lay treasures that captured the imagination of the world: golden masks, ornate jewelry, ceremonial objects, and among them, a dagger unlike any other. Its blade was not forged from the copper or bronze that was common in Egypt at the time, but from iron, a rare and precious metal. Even more extraordinary, analysis revealed that this iron did not come from the earth beneath Egypt, it came from the sky. Meteoric iron fallen from space had been used to craft this dagger, long before the Iron Age had fully emerged in Egypt. This material was recognized as extraordinary, exotic, and imbued with power. The very act of wielding such a blade would have carried immense symbolic weight, connecting the pharaoh to the cosmos, to forces beyond the ordinary, and to divine authority. The dagger itself is a marvel of craftsmanship. The blade is sharp, precise, and symmetrical, carefully hammered and polished. Its hilt, intricately decorated, displays motifs and symbols of royalty, divinity, and protection. Every aspect of the dagger speaks to the skill of artisans who understood not only how to shape a rare and valuable material, but also how to imbue an object with meaning beyond mere utility. Analysis of the metal confirms its cosmic origin. Trace elements and nickel content indicate the iron came from a meteorite, a fragment of material that had traveled millions of kilometers through space before falling to Earth. This realization transforms the dagger from a simple weapon into a link between the heavens and one of the most powerful human figures in history. It is, in a sense, a bridge between two realms: the earthly kingdom ruled by Tutankhamun and the celestial kingdom from which the metal itself originated. The historical context of meteoric iron is fascinating. Before the widespread smelting of terrestrial iron, meteoric iron was one of the few sources of workable iron. Ancient cultures revered it as special, sometimes calling it iron from heaven or associating it with gods and celestial phenomena. In Egypt, where the pharaoh was considered both human and divine, such a dagger would have carried profound religious and symbolic significance. It was not merely a weapon, it was a statement of cosmic power, a talisman of authority, and a connection to forces that ordinary mortals could neither access nor understand. Crafting a dagger from meteoric iron was no small feat. Unlike softer metals, the nickel-rich iron of meteorites is hard and challenging to shape. Artisans of the time had to understand the material's properties, applying techniques that allowed them to forge, hammer, and polish the blade without breaking or warping it. The result is not just a tool of war but a work of art, a synthesis of technology, devotion, and symbolism. The dagger's presence in Tutankhamun's tomb also tells a story of status and belief. As a pharaoh, Tutankhamun's possessions reflected both his earthly power and his divine role. Including a meteoric iron dagger among his burial goods demonstrates an understanding of the metal's rarity and spiritual significance. It was an object meant to accompany him into the afterlife, ensuring that even in death, the pharaoh wielded a symbol of authority that connected him to the heavens. Scientific studies have allowed modern observers to marvel at this object in new ways. Metallurgical analysis confirms the presence of iron-nickel alloys characteristic of meteorites. Microscopic examination reveals the sophisticated forging techniques used to shape the blade. The combination of cosmic origin and meticulous craftsmanship makes this dagger unique, not only in Egypt but in the history of metallurgy. The symbolic power of the dagger extends beyond its physical form. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was seen as the intermediary between gods and people, the living embodiment of divine will. Wielding a weapon forged from the stars reinforced this connection, giving tangible form to a spiritual and cosmic authority. The dagger is a reminder that power in ancient times was not only political but deeply intertwined with belief, ritual, and the natural world, or in this case, the universe itself. The dagger also invites reflection on human ingenuity and perception. Even in an age without modern technology, people recognized the exceptional properties of meteoric iron and found ways to harness it, shaping it into tools, ornaments, and symbols. It is a testament to curiosity, skill, and reverence for materials that carried stories far older than human civilization itself. Within the tomb, the dagger rests among other treasures, jewelry, gold, ceremonial masks, and everyday objects, but it stands out for its rarity and significance. The juxtaposition of earthly wealth and celestial material creates a dialogue between the tangible and the extraordinary, between human achievement and cosmic wonder. This dagger reminds us that even thousands of years ago, humans looked to the sky for inspiration, meaning, and power. Modern visitors and scholars continue to study and admire the dagger. Museums and research centers use advanced imaging techniques to reveal its construction and composition, while historians interpret its role within Tutankhamun's life and death. The dagger serves as a bridge between disciplines, archaeology, metallurgy, astronomy, and history, illustrating the profound ways in which humans have always sought to understand and engage with the universe around them. The meteoric iron dagger of Tutankhamun, forged from material older than civilization itself, is a story of craftsmanship, reverence, and cosmic connection. It shows that the ancient Egyptians were aware of the extraordinary, capable of transforming rare natural phenomena into objects of power and meaning. In the hands of a pharaoh, it symbolized authority, divinity, and mastery over both earthly and celestial domains. Even today, the dagger captivates imaginations. Its story transcends time, linking a boy king who ruled more than 3,000 years ago with the stars that fell long before he was born. It is a tangible reminder of humanity's enduring fascination with the cosmos, the skill required to manipulate rare materials, and the desire to create objects that carry meaning far beyond their physical form. Tutankhamun's meteoric iron dagger is more than an artifact. It is a symbol of human curiosity and ingenuity, of the blending of earthly life and celestial wonder, and of the extraordinary lengths to which ancient peoples would go to honor their rulers and the divine. Its journey from the heavens to the hands of a pharaoh, and finally to our modern understanding, is a testament to the timeless allure of objects that connect us to forces larger than ourselves. 2,400-year-old shipwreck with wine and olive oil jars. Off the rugged coastline of the Mediterranean, beneath turquoise waters and centuries of sediment, archaeologists discovered a time capsule from the past, a shipwreck dating back approximately 2,400 years. The vessel lay silently on the seabed, remarkably preserved, cradling its precious cargo, dozens of amphora, the tall, slender ceramic jars that once carried the lifeblood of ancient trade, wine, olive oil, and perhaps other commodities now lost to time. The ship itself is a testament to ancient seafaring. Carved timbers and fastened planks reveal sophisticated shipbuilding techniques, demonstrating the skill and ingenuity of sailors who navigated these waters without modern instruments. The hull, though battered by centuries of tides, still holds the shape of the vessel, allowing historians and engineers to study the design and understand how these ships supported commerce, travel, and communication across the Mediterranean world. The amphora are the real treasures. Their shapes, sizes, and markings reveal the contents they carried and the regions they came from. Some were stamped with maker's marks, symbols of origin and quality assurance in a time before mass production or labeling. Others bear traces of wine sediments, olive oil residues, or aromatic compounds, allowing scientists to identify their contents and gain insight into the diets, trade, and culture of ancient civilizations. Wine and olive oil were more than commodities, they were symbols of culture, prosperity, and connection. Wine accompanied religious rituals, celebrations, and daily meals, binding communities together. Olive oil nourished bodies, lit lamps, and formed the basis of trade networks that spanned continents. The presence of these jars aboard a single ship speaks to the sophistication and interconnectedness of Mediterranean trade, highlighting the economic, social, and spiritual significance of these substances. Archaeologists carefully documented the site, noting the positions of the jars, the orientation of the ship, and the condition of the cargo. The arrangement of amphorae suggests careful packing to prevent shifting in rough waters. The precision reflects the value placed on their contents, as even minor damage could result in significant loss. The techniques used to stow cargo demonstrate an understanding of balance, weight distribution, and the perils of ancient seafaring. Chemical analysis of the residues inside the jars reveals fascinating insights. Wine fragments contain traces of grapes, herbs, and fermentation byproducts, while olive oil jars retain chemical signatures of the fruit, processing methods, and even regional variations. Such information allows researchers to reconstruct ancient agricultural practices, trade routes, and culinary preferences, providing a vivid window into the daily life of civilizations long vanished beneath the waves. The discovery of the shipwreck also illuminates the risks of maritime life. Navigation relied on stars, wind, and currents, and vessels were vulnerable to storms, hidden rocks, and human error. The ship's sinking, whether due to storm, conflict, or accident, offers clues to the challenges faced by ancient sailors. Every broken plank, tilted amphora, and sediment layer tells a story of peril, resilience, and the unpredictable forces of the sea. Historical context enriches the narrative. Around 2,400 years ago, the Mediterranean was a network of city-states, empires, and colonies, including the Greeks, Phoenicians, and Egyptians. Trade bound these regions together, facilitating cultural exchange, artistic diffusion, and economic growth. The shipwreck, frozen in time, is a snapshot of these interactions, a silent witness to commerce, ambition, and human ingenuity. The location of the wreck also informs us about ancient maritime routes. Proximity to certain ports suggests that this vessel may have been traveling from the Aegean or Eastern Mediterranean toward Egypt, North Africa, or Western Europe. Each amphora potentially carries the story of its origin, the hands that filled it, and the markets it was destined to reach. By studying the distribution and composition of the cargo, researchers map the flow of goods, ideas, and culture across the ancient world. The preservation of the ship and its cargo is remarkable. Layers of sand, silt, and marine life formed a protective blanket, preventing decay and allowing fragile ceramics and organic residues to survive for millennia. Excavation requires patience and precision, using tools, cameras, and underwater archaeology techniques to ensure every fragment is documented and conserved. In doing so, researchers honor not only the material remains but also the lives of those who built, crewed, and traded aboard this vessel. The amphorae themselves are elegant objects. Their tapered bodies, narrow necks, and carefully sealed tops are both functional and aesthetically pleasing. Each one was designed to transport precious liquids safely, to withstand jostling during long voyages, and to be stored efficiently in the ship's hold. The craftsmanship reflects an understanding of both material science and practical necessity, merging art and utility in ways that modern observers continue to admire. Beyond economics, the shipwreck offers glimpses into cultural practices. Wine jars may have held special blends for ritual or ceremonial purposes. Olive oil could have been used for lighting sacred spaces or preparing food. Each amphora, each shard, represents human choices, preferences, trade connections, and the rhythms of life in the ancient Mediterranean. The cargo is a storybook of material culture, preserved beneath the waves, awaiting discovery and interpretation. The shipwreck also underscores human resilience and ingenuity. Ancient sailors navigated unpredictable waters, relying on experience, observation, and skill. They built vessels capable of crossing hundreds of kilometers, transporting fragile and valuable goods. The surviving wreck embodies this technical knowledge, revealing a sophisticated understanding of construction, buoyancy, and durability. Finally, the 2,400-year-old shipwreck reminds us that history is not always found on land or in written records. Sometimes the most vivid stories lie beneath the surface, silent yet eloquent, waiting for careful hands and curious minds to bring them to life. Each amphora, each plank, and each trace of residue is a message from the past, a connection to the people who built, sailed, and traded across a vibrant Mediterranean world. Through this discovery, we gain more than artifacts. We gain perspective on human ambition, commerce, and creativity. The shipwreck is a frozen moment in time, a bridge across centuries, inviting us to imagine the lives of sailors and merchants, the destinations of goods, and the intricate networks that shape civilization. The 2,400-year-old shipwreck, with its jars of wine and olive oil, is a testament to the enduring human desire to explore, trade, and connect. It carries lessons of craftsmanship, risk, and cultural exchange, and it whispers the story of an ancient maritime world still waiting to be fully understood. The Buddha at the Egyptian port of Berenike. Along the edge of the Red Sea, where the desert meets the waves and trade routes once connected distant civilizations, lies the ancient port of Berenike, in modern-day Egypt. For centuries it served as a gateway between Africa, the Mediterranean, and the rich lands of India and beyond. Ships carried spices, gemstones, textiles, and ideas across these waters, creating a crossroads of commerce, culture, and religion. It was here, amid the arid sands and remnants of bustling trade, that archaeologists uncovered a discovery that would challenge our understanding of the ancient world: a statue of the Buddha, thousands of kilometers from the monasteries and temples of South Asia. The statue is small but remarkable. Crafted from sandstone, it depicts a seated figure in meditative repose, its features serene, its posture precise. The folds of the robe, the gentle curve of the face, and the contemplative expression speak to a mastery of artistic tradition far from Egyptian shores. This is not a local imitation, it is a piece that connects directly to Buddhist visual culture of India, evidence of travel, exchange, and the spread of spiritual ideas. Finding a Buddha statue in Berenike is startling because it speaks to the reach of trade and belief in antiquity. This port, though geographically on the edge of the Roman Empire, was not isolated. Merchants and travelers brought objects, materials, and ideas across deserts and oceans. The Buddha statue is tangible proof that spiritual traditions traveled along with goods, that philosophy, art, and devotion could cross vast distances, influencing people and communities far from their point of origin. Archaeologists were initially surprised by the discovery. Berenike had long been studied for its Roman-era buildings, shipwrecks, and artifacts related to commerce, amphorae, coins, ceramics, and jewelry. But a religious object so intimately tied to South Asia suggested connections previously underestimated, revealing that the Red Sea trade network was not only economic but also cultural. This statue embodies the interaction of worlds: Egyptian sands, Indian religious traditions, and Roman trade networks converging in a single, unexpected place. The craftsmanship of the statue is noteworthy. Every detail reflects careful attention: the hands resting in the dhyana mudra, a gesture of meditation, the seated lotus posture, symbolizing spiritual elevation, and the calm facial features, designed to inspire tranquility and reflection. Such attention indicates that the object was intended for devotion, not mere decoration, a talisman of spiritual connection transported across deserts and seas to reach a foreign land. Contextual evidence supports the idea that Berenike was a hub for cultural exchange. Archaeologists have found coins from India, Roman amphorae containing imported wine, and textiles dyed with foreign pigments. The Buddha statue fits within this pattern, demonstrating that ideas and beliefs, like commodities, traveled widely. It is an emblem of the interconnectedness of the ancient world, reminding us that even in antiquity, distant civilizations could touch one another through trade, migration, and curiosity. The arrival of the Buddha statue in Egypt raises questions about the people who transported it. Merchants, sailors, or travelers may have carried the statue as a devotional object, a gift, or even as a trade item with symbolic value. Its presence indicates familiarity with Buddhist culture and suggests that those involved in maritime trade recognize the significance of religious objects and their power to convey meaning across cultures. Analysis of the statue also highlights its authenticity and style. Experts note the Indian influence in the carving technique, proportional features, and iconographic details. The sandstone, though sourced locally in some cases, was worked to replicate South Asian sculptural traditions with remarkable fidelity. The piece is thus both a product of skillful craftsmanship and a bridge between regions, embodying a fusion of material availability and cultural intention. Beyond the artistic and historical significance, the Buddha of Berenike invites reflection on the flow of spiritual ideas. It suggests that even in distant lands, concepts of meditation, enlightenment, and philosophical practice could take root, or at least be acknowledged by those far removed from their origin. It offers a glimpse of a world in which belief systems traveled alongside merchants and explorers, shaping thought and experience in subtle but enduring ways. The port itself provides further insight. Berenike's layout, warehouses, docks, and living quarters illustrate a bustling cosmopolitan community, open to diverse cultures and beliefs. The discovery of foreign religious objects like the Buddha statue indicates tolerance, curiosity, and the blending of traditions. It reminds us that ancient societies were complex networks of interaction, not isolated civilizations. The statue also sparks questions about ritual and use. Was it displayed in a private residence, placed in a small shrine within the port, or carried by a merchant as a talisman of protection during perilous sea voyages? While the exact circumstances remain unknown, the object's survival offers a profound connection across space and time, allowing us to imagine the devotion and care with which it was handled. The broader significance of the find extends to global history. It challenges assumptions about the limits of cultural exchange in the ancient world, showing that even remote ports were not merely points of commerce, but also conduits for art, spirituality, and ideas. The Buddha at Berenike is a testament to human curiosity and interconnectedness, a reminder that the movement of people and beliefs is as old as civilization itself. In examining the statue, one can also appreciate the continuity of devotion and artistic expression. The serene expression, meditative posture, and symbolic details reflect centuries of spiritual practice and philosophical reflection. Despite its relocation and the passage of time, the statue conveys the same sense of contemplation, presence, and reverence that would have been recognized in its place of origin. The Buddha of Burnike is a lens through which we can explore ancient trade, religious diffusion, and cultural hybridity. It embodies the reach of ideas across oceans and deserts, and it tells a story of human ingenuity, adaptability, and the desire to connect across boundaries. From the Indian subcontinent to the Red Sea coast of Egypt, it is a tangible record of the journeys, both physical and spiritual, undertaken by humans thousands of years ago. Ultimately, the Buddha at Burnike is more than an archaeological artifact. It is a symbol of interconnected human experience. It demonstrates that even in the ancient world, ideas, beliefs, and art traveled with remarkable fluidity. It is a reminder that distant civilizations were not isolated, but in conversation, and that the spiritual and material worlds were intertwined in ways that continue to surprise and inspire us today. Tomb of the Leopard Priest near Saqqara. In the vast necropolis of Saqqara, where the desert stretches endlessly and the shadows of ancient pyramids mark the horizon, a recent discovery has captured the attention of archaeologists and historians worldwide: the tomb of a leopard priest. This tomb, hidden for millennia beneath the arid sands of Egypt, offers an extraordinary glimpse into the religious practices, artistry, and daily life of a mysterious figure from a time long past. The leopard priest, as the archaeologists have named him, was a high-ranking religious official whose duties and rituals connected the earthly world with the divine. His tomb, discovered amid a cluster of ancient burial sites, contains not only his remains, but also a wealth of artifacts, statues, wall inscriptions, ceremonial objects, and symbolic imagery, all pointing to a life devoted to spiritual service and ritual practice. Central to understanding this priest is the motif of the leopard. In ancient Egyptian religion, the leopard was a symbol of strength, protection, and the connection between the physical and spiritual realms. Priests associated with this animal often wore leopard skins during ceremonies, embodying the creature's power and channeling its essence during sacred rituals. The discovery of this tomb, with its carefully preserved artifacts and remnants of ceremonial regalia, allows us to imagine the life and responsibilities of such a figure in exquisite detail. The tomb itself is modest in size, but rich in symbolism. Carved walls feature hieroglyphs recounting rituals, prayers, and invocations to gods of the underworld. Images depict the priest adorned in leopard skin, performing sacred rites, and standing before deities, highlighting the essential role of intermediaries in Egyptian spirituality. The artistry is precise and intricate, revealing not only skill but a deep reverence for religious practice. Among the most remarkable finds are ceremonial objects that once belonged to the priest. These include small statues, ritual vessels, and tools used in temple rites. Some items show signs of wear, evidence that they were actively used in ceremonies rather than crafted solely for burial. This provides a window into the daily life of a religious official, blending spiritual devotion with practical utility in ways that underscore the importance of ritual in ancient Egyptian society. The human remains themselves offer additional insight. Analysis of the priest's bones suggests a life lived with a balance of physical activity and ceremonial duty. While much of his identity comes from the artifacts and inscriptions, the skeletal evidence provides a tangible connection to the person behind the title, reminding us that history is composed not only of objects but of living individuals who shaped and experienced their world. The tomb also contains symbols linking the priest to the afterlife. Funerary texts, amulets, and carved motifs indicate beliefs about death, resurrection, and divine protection. The leopard, recurring throughout the tomb's imagery, is both a guardian and a spiritual guide, emphasizing the connection between ritual practice in life and the hoped-for protection in the world beyond. This discovery is particularly significant because it sheds light on the role of animal symbolism in Egyptian religious hierarchy. While pharaohs and high priests are often documented, specific designations like the leopard priest are rare. The tomb provides evidence of specialized roles within the priesthood and illustrates how ancient Egyptians used natural imagery to convey spiritual power, authority, and sanctity. Archaeologists also note the tomb's context within Saqqara. Situated among other elite burials, it reflects social hierarchy, religious practice, and the interplay between status and devotion. The proximity of the tomb to other notable burials suggests a community of religious practitioners who maintained sacred knowledge, performed rituals, and influenced both local and national spiritual life. Excavation of the tomb requires meticulous care. The fragile state of some artifacts, the delicate wall inscriptions, and the preserved textiles demand slow, deliberate work. Every brushstroke, measurement, and photograph is part of a process that honors both the scientific rigor of archaeology and the respect owed to those long gone. In doing so, the team reconstructs not just objects but the narrative of a person's life, work, and spiritual presence. The leopard priest's tomb also invites reflection on ritual and identity. Wearing the leopard skin was not simply symbolic, it represented the assumption of qualities essential to spiritual authority: courage, protection, and vigilance. By inhabiting the persona of the leopard during ceremonies, the priest enacted a connection between mortal and divine, bridging the realms of living and spiritual worlds in ways that shaped the community's religious life. Furthermore, the discovery emphasizes the global fascination with Saqqara. While famous for its step pyramid and vast necropolis, the site continues to reveal hidden histories, reminding us that ancient civilizations often left layers of knowledge waiting to be uncovered. Each tomb, statue, or artifact contributes to a broader understanding of culture, belief, and human aspiration. The ceremonial objects, hieroglyphs, and art within the tomb tell a story of devotion, reverence, and meticulous attention to spiritual practice. The leopard priest was more than an official; he was a mediator, a guide, and a custodian of sacred knowledge. His tomb preserves the traces of a life dedicated to connecting the mundane with the divine, a testament to the enduring power of ritual and belief. In considering the tomb, one also reflects on continuity and memory. Millennia have passed, yet the objects, images, and inscriptions remain, offering a dialogue between past and present. Modern archaeologists, historians, and visitors are able to reconstruct not only the priest's role, but also the cultural values of the society that honored him. The tomb is a vessel for understanding identity, faith, and the human desire to leave a lasting mark. The leopard priest of Saqqara, now known to us through the careful work of excavation and research, represents the intersection of artistry, spirituality, and history. He is a symbol of the sacred role individuals played in maintaining societal and cosmic order, and his tomb is a chronicle of devotion, power, and ritual practice. By studying this tomb, we gain insight into a world where the divine and earthly were inseparable, where symbols of animals conveyed spiritual authority, and where devotion could shape every aspect of a person's life. The leopard priest's legacy, preserved in stone, pigment, and artifact, is a reminder of the depth, complexity, and richness of ancient Egyptian civilization. The tomb, hidden for thousands of years beneath desert sands, now stands as a bridge across time. It invites us to consider not just what has been discovered, but what remains to be uncovered. What stories continue to lie in silence beneath the earth, waiting for the patient eyes and hands of those who seek to understand. The leopard priest, his symbols, and his tomb are more than historical curiosities. They are living stories of devotion, ritual, and the intricate tapestry of human belief. Each object, inscription, and carving tells a part of the story, allowing us to glimpse the life of a man who in life and death walked the delicate boundary between mortal and divine. The nun, with lapis lazuli in her teeth. In the hushed cloisters of a medieval convent, centuries ago, lived a woman whose quiet devotion would echo across time in the most unexpected way. She was not a queen, not a warrior, nor a saint whose name entered chronicles, but a nun, one of many who lived in disciplined silence, dedicating her life to prayer, service, and labor. Yet through a remarkable discovery, fragments of blue pigment embedded in her teeth, her life has re-emerged, shining with a brilliance as rare as the material itself. Lapis lazuli. Lapis lazuli, the deep ultramarine stone mined from the mountains of Afghanistan, was among the most precious substances of the medieval world. Its vivid blue, ground into fine pigment, was reserved for the most sacred manuscripts, for the robes of the Virgin Mary, in illuminated texts, for artwork that sought to capture the divine. Its rarity and expense made it more valuable than gold. To find traces of it in the mouth of a medieval nun is a revelation, not of accident, but of purpose. It tells a story of devotion, artistry, and the hidden roles of women in shaping the intellectual and artistic heritage of Europe. The discovery came from skeletal remains unearthed in a small graveyard beside a modest convent. At first, her bones appeared ordinary, unmarked by wealth or power. But when researchers examined her teeth under microscopes, they found flecks of deep blue pigment embedded in the tartar. These were not natural stains or environmental intrusions. They were fragments of lapis lazuli, fixed in place for centuries. How did this rare pigment lodge itself in her teeth? The answer reveals a hidden history. This nun, though anonymous, was almost certainly a scribe and illuminator. She would have worked long hours in the scriptorium, grinding pigments, mixing them with binders, and applying them with delicate brushes to parchment pages. Lapis lazuli was so fine and light that it could easily cling to her lips, her tongue, her breath, and in one plausible, almost intimate detail, historians imagine her moistening her brush with her lips, a habit common among painters and scribes. Each time she did so, minute flecks of blue entered her mouth. becoming part of her body, preserved for nearly 1,000 years. This single discovery rewrote assumptions about medieval manuscript production. For generations, many assumed that only men, monks in monasteries, created illuminated manuscripts. The evidence of lapis in this nun's teeth reveals women's central roles in the production of sacred texts. Women whose labor was often invisible, unrecorded, and undervalued, yet vital to the preservation of learning, art, and faith. Imagine her world, the scriptorium lit by flickering candles, the smell of ink, parchment, and pigments filling the air. Around her, fellow nuns might chant prayers, copy texts, or prepare bindings. In her hands, she held a quill or brush, tracing the curves of letters, applying gold leaf, layering ultramarine blues into images of saints and angels. Each stroke required patience, precision, and devotion. These books were not simply texts, they were objects of worship, repositories of knowledge, and symbols of a community's piety. The presence of lapis lazuli specifically links her to manuscripts of great importance. Only the wealthiest patrons, bishops, kings, or noblewomen, could commission works requiring such costly pigments. To entrust such material to her hands suggests immense skill and a reputation for excellence. Though her name is lost, her craft was so valued that she handled the rarest pigment of her time, contributing to works meant to endure centuries. Chemical analysis of the blue fragments further supports this story. The pigment's composition matched lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, transported thousands of miles along trade routes that stretched from Central Asia through the Middle East into Europe. Each fleck in her teeth is not just pigment, but evidence of vast networks of commerce, cultural exchange, and devotion that link distant lands through art and faith. The nun herself becomes more vivid through these details. She was likely middle-aged at the time of death, her teeth worn with years of use, her bones showing signs of labor and modest living. Yet within her tartar, she carried the memory of ultramarine skies, of sacred pages she helped illuminate, of art that sought to mirror heaven itself. Her discovery also challenges assumptions about women's intellectual and artistic contributions in the Middle Ages. Too often history has erased or minimized their roles, yet here, in microscopic blue specks, we see evidence of a woman at the heart of cultural production, not merely copying texts, but creating beauty, sanctity, and permanence through art. She was part of a lineage of women whose skills preserved and transmitted knowledge across generations. Scholars reflect on the poignancy of this evidence. In life, she labored in obscurity, her identity subsumed in the collective silence of the convent. In death, she was buried without grand markers, her bones resting among dozens of others. Yet through science, her story has been reclaimed, and she now represents countless unnamed women whose artistry shaped medieval culture. The symbolic power of lapis lazuli amplifies her legacy. This was a pigment that conveyed divinity, eternity, and sacredness. That it became part of her body, literally embedded in her teeth, is a metaphor for the inseparability of devotion and labor. She carried her art within her, as much as on the pages she illuminated. She was not only a vessel of faith, but also a creator, embodying the union of spirit and craft. The nun with lapis lazuli in her teeth reminds us that history often whispers through the smallest details, not through grand monuments or king's proclamations, but through pigments caught in enamel, through fragile evidence that outlasts centuries of silence. Her story is one of resilience, of creativity, and of recognition delayed but not denied. In studying her, we glimpse the intimate intersection of body, art, and faith. We see the breath of a scribe lingering on a brush, the touch of pigment on parchment, the devotion woven into every stroke, and we are reminded that behind every illuminated manuscript, every radiant page of medieval art, stood not only the well-known but also the forgotten, hands that painted, eyes that strained, lives that gave themselves to the pursuit of beauty and meaning. The nun, through her lapis-stained teeth, emerges as a symbol of hidden histories. She is a voice for the unrecorded, the anonymous artisans and women whose labor illuminated not only manuscripts but also the collective human story. Her life, once obscure, now shines with the same brilliance as the pigment she carried, linking her across centuries to us. The Icelands of Ilulissat. Far to the north, where the land narrows into jagged cliffs and the sea breathes in slow, icy swells, lies a place shaped almost entirely by ice. Ilulissat, on the west coast of Greenland, is home to one of the most extraordinary natural phenomena in the world. Here, at the Ilulissat Icefjord, glaciers grind and move with the patience of centuries, breaking into towering icebergs that drift out into the open ocean. From the surface, the fjord is a landscape of white and blue, frozen peaks rising like mountains from the water, sculpted by forces too vast for human imagination. But deep within this frozen realm, scientists and explorers uncovered something strange, an enormous, naturally formed lens of ice. A mass so clear, so perfectly structured that it behaved like a giant magnifying glass, refracting light in ways that seemed almost unnatural. The so-called ice lens of Ilulissat is not a myth or a piece of folklore, but a discovery that blurs the line between nature and something more deliberate. To see it is to feel a quiet unease, as if the Earth itself has shaped a tool, not for humans, not for science, but for reasons locked in the deep cycles of climate and time. The lens was first described by glaciologists, who noticed odd distortions in the way light bent beneath the surface of the fjord. Divers, braving the freezing waters, reported that in certain chambers under the ice, entire sections curved inward with a transparency so pure it was nearly invisible. The ice was compacted over thousands of years, every bubble of air squeezed out by pressure, leaving behind a density and clarity rarely seen in nature. When light passed through it, beams split, bent, and scattered across the dark water. Shapes warped. A diver's hand could appear stretched like a shadow one moment, then shrunken and sharp the next. The effect was so precise it resembled crafted glass, yet no human hand had shaped it. It was ice alone, forged by weight, time, and stillness. Standing at the fjord's edge, it is easy to imagine the hidden lens beneath. The surface groans with the sound of glaciers calving, sudden thunderclaps that echo like cannons across the water. Icebergs roll and fracture, sending ripples of power outward. And beneath, light filters into caverns, refracted through the lens, turning the water into something almost otherworldly. The people of Ilulissat, whose ancestors have lived along this coast for thousands of years, hold deep respect for the ice. For them it is alive, shifting, speaking, carrying stories in its creaks and sighs. Hunters navigating among the bergs say they can feel when the ice is about to move, as though it has moods of its own. To them, the idea of a massive ice lens is not just a scientific curiosity, but part of the living spirit of the fjord. The lens itself, though silent, magnifies the great truth of this place, that ice is not static, but alive with motion and memory. Within its layers, tiny bubbles of ancient atmosphere remain trapped. Whispers from a world long vanished. Scientists study them to glimpse climates from tens of thousands of years ago. The ice lens, in its clarity, holds these records with crystalline precision. It is both an artifact of the past and a messenger of change. For modern science, it offers something else, a natural optical tool. Underwater cameras and sensors placed near the lens revealed that images captured through it were enlarged, warped, and sometimes clarified, as though nature herself had built an instrument of observation. Some researchers joked it was as if the Earth had crafted its own telescope, but instead of peering outward to the stars, it peers inward, into itself. Yet there is an unease here. Because lenses are purposeful things, they are made, designed, shaped. And while no conscious hand sculpted the ice lens of Ilulissat, the perfection of its form makes it hard to escape the feeling of intention. Was it coincidence, or the inevitable result of time and pressure, or does ice, in its strange geometry, follow laws we barely understand? Rules that sometimes create objects that mimic design. The fjord itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected not only for its beauty, but also for its significance in understanding climate. The Surmek Kujalek Glacier, which feeds the fjord, is one of the most active in the world, shedding billions of tons of ice each year. The lens, hidden deep within, is both a product of this endless cycle and a symbol of what we stand to lose as the climate warms. For if the glacier retreats, if the ice thins, the lens may fracture and vanish, leaving behind only stories of what once was. Consider, for a moment, the patience required for its creation. Thousands upon thousands of winters, layered snow upon the glacier. Each flake compressed, each bubble of air pushed out, each season folding upon the last. Pressure built, water molecules locked into crystalline grids, and over ages, the lens was born. It is a reminder that the Earth creates wonders not in days or years, but in spans so long that human lifetimes barely measure against them. And yet, when the light hits it, just right, the effect is instantaneous. A shaft of sunlight bends into rainbows under the water. A fish passes through the refracted field and appears to split into two, then merge again. A human face reflected in its surface can appear stretched into something unrecognizable. In one moment, a diver sees reality itself bend. It is timeless patience producing a fleeting spectacle. For the Inuit hunters of the region, there are stories of ice that shows visions, of places where water and light meet to reveal more than what the eye expects. Some elders speak of seeing ancestors in the shifting ice, faces that come and go with the melting. The ice lens may not have been known in scientific terms to them, but the sense of its strangeness, of ice as a medium of vision, echoes in their traditions. Today, researchers return to Ilulissat again and again, bringing instruments to measure, cameras to capture, sensors to record. But the lens resists easy study. It shifts as the glacier moves. It hides beneath layers of ice too dangerous to penetrate for long. It offers only glimpses, a distortion here, a shimmer there, a reminder that not all of nature's secrets are meant to be catalogued. Some are meant to be felt, experienced, and remembered in story. In the end, the ice lens of Ilulissat is both fragile and eternal. Fragile because it depends on conditions that are rapidly changing, eternal because it embodies processes that have shaped the Earth for millennia. To see it is to witness the marriage of physics and mystery, clarity and illusion, and perhaps as the ice continues to break, as new lenses may form and old ones dissolve, it reminds us that the world itself is a lens, bending our vision, shaping what we see, offering us fleeting moments of clarity amid the shifting patterns of time. The vault beneath the Silk Fortress. On the edge of the great steppes where grasslands roll out endlessly and winds sweep across open horizons, stands a fortress with walls that shimmer faintly in the sun. Its stones, weathered by centuries, are held together not only by mortar, but by fibers of silk woven deep into its structure. Locals call it the Silk Fortress, a citadel raised not only to withstand armies, but also to guard a secret buried beneath its foundations. The fortress itself is old, so old that no single dynasty can claim it fully. Some say it was erected by merchants along the Silk Road, built as a safe house for caravans carrying jewels, spices, and manuscripts. Others insist it was commissioned by kings fearful of raiders, a defensive jewel where wealth could be hidden away. Whatever its origin, the fortress's legend always returns to the same point: the vault beneath it, a chamber said to hold relics that time itself has forgotten. When you first approach the fortress, it appears as a silhouette against the horizon. Its towers, worn but proud, rise from the earth like guardians. The stones are pale, reflecting light in a way that gives the whole place a faint glow. Travelers have long claimed the walls glimmer because of silk threads embedded in the plaster, fibers that made the walls stronger, more flexible, and strangely resistant to decay. To touch the fortress is to feel both the grit of stone and the faint softness of something woven, something not entirely mineral, but the true wonder lies beneath. Stories tell of a staircase hidden behind one of the towers, sealed by a slab of stone. To move it, one needed both strength and cunning, for its weight was immense, but its position was balanced so that only a precise push could make it shift. Behind it stretched a spiral descent, lit in ancient times by oil lamps set into niches. The air there was cool, heavy with the scent of age. Each step down took you not just deeper into the earth, but further into history itself. At the base lay the vault, not vast like the chambers of Egyptian kings, not ornate like Roman catacombs, but subtle, carved with discipline and silence. Its walls bore engravings in languages half forgotten, script that blended Persian flourishes with symbols from even older tongues. The vault was designed not for spectacle, but for endurance. It was a place where things could wait, patiently, eternally. What did it hold? Accounts differ. One tale says that when the Mongol armies swept across the steppes, the keepers of the fortress hurried to protect what they could not flee with. They sealed manuscripts, maps, and sacred relics in the vault, ensuring they would not fall into the flames of conquest. Another story speaks of a single object, a casket made of lacquered wood, lined with silk, said to contain a jewel that burned with inner light, perhaps a meteorite shard, or something even stranger. Some merchants believed it was not a jewel at all, but a relic from a land beyond, an object of knowledge passed down in whispers across centuries of trade. There are those who say the vault was not a treasury at all, but a library, that the fortress was less a military outpost than a sanctuary of memory, where scrolls and tablets were hidden away from the chaos of empires. Imagine parchment bearing the formulas of lost medicines, the diagrams of vanished astronomers, the songs of poets whose voices no longer echo in any hall. If true, then the Silk Fortress was not only a shelter of stone and silk, but of thought itself. Explorers who came in later centuries tried to find the vault. Some dug at the base of the walls, searching for hidden doors. Others bribed locals for secrets. A few even claimed success, but their accounts are wrapped in riddles, as if those who glimpsed the vault feared to speak too plainly, lest others come to plunder it. One 18th-century traveler wrote of descending into a chamber where the walls seemed to sweat with dampness, and of seeing shelves carved into the rock, still holding fragments of papyrus. He left quickly, he said, because the air was too heavy to breathe, and because a low humming sound filled the space, as if the stones themselves whispered. Whether truth or embellishment, the Silk Fortress has remained a place of fascination for historians and dreamers alike. Archaeologists studying the structure today note how unusual it is to mix silk into building material on such a scale. The fibers lend resilience, almost like rebar in modern concrete. It suggests the builders were not only practical but also symbolic, weaving into their stronghold the very fabric that gave the Silk Road its name. In this way, the walls became both shield and symbol, a declaration that this fortress was of the road, for the road, and for those who carried its lifeblood of trade and story. The vault, though still elusive, lingers as a reminder that history does not always reveal itself openly. Beneath the visible world lies another, waiting quietly. Sometimes it waits beneath ruins, sometimes beneath ice, sometimes beneath silk-bound stone. Standing at the fortress today, you can feel the weight of its secrecy. The wind tugs at the grasses, birds circle above the towers, and beneath your feet, somewhere in the layered earth, rests the vault. Perhaps it is empty now, robbed long ago. Perhaps it still holds relics no hand has touched for 1,000 years. But whether treasure, library, or legend, it speaks to a truth older than kingdoms, that humanity has always hidden away pieces of itself, hoping to preserve them against the flood of time. And so, the vault beneath the Silk Fortress remains, a chamber of whispers, a knot of mystery on the map of the ancient world. A reminder that not all fortresses were built only for battle. Some were built to keep memory itself alive. The Jar Babies of Laos. Deep in the lush remote highlands of Laos, among rivers that wind silently through dense forests and mist-shrouded mountains, there exists a burial practice that has puzzled historians and anthropologists for decades: the jar burials of infants. Scattered across secluded villages and hidden valleys, these sites reveal an ancient cultural tradition, delicate yet striking in its mystery and precision. The jars, often large earthenware vessels, cradle the smallest members of society, their bodies carefully positioned and preserved with ritualistic intent, creating a poignant connection between life, death, and the earth itself. The first encounters with these burials often come during fieldwork in remote areas. Archaeologists, guided by local knowledge or chance discovery, find jars partially buried or hidden beneath forest floors. Each jar is unique. Some are simple, unadorned, and utilitarian. Others are intricately decorated with carvings, painted symbols, or inscriptions. Inside, the bodies of infants are curled, sometimes wrapped in cloth, sometimes accompanied by small objects, beads, personal items, or offerings meant to accompany them into the next stage of existence. The attention to detail is remarkable. Each infant is carefully positioned, often in a fetal posture, reflecting beliefs about rebirth, protection, or continuity. Scholars speculate that the curled position symbolizes a return to the womb, a connection between death and rebirth. The jars themselves are chosen for size and shape to hold the child securely, ensuring the body remains undisturbed while resting beneath the soil or forest canopy. The process of burial appears deliberate and highly ritualized. Infants are never simply laid in the ground. They are carefully placed in jars, sometimes with organic materials like leaves or fibers to provide cushioning, sometimes with small charms or objects. The jars may then be sealed or partially covered with stones, ensuring that the body remains protected from animals, environmental conditions, or the passage of time. These practices suggest a profound respect for life, even in death, and an understanding of the spiritual or symbolic significance of the youngest members of society. The jars vary widely in style and craftsmanship, reflecting both the cultural diversity of the region and the passage of time. Some are plain and utilitarian, likely reflecting communities with limited resources. Others are elaborately adorned, with geometric patterns, symbols, or even human or animal motifs. These decorative choices suggest ritual significance, a way of honoring the deceased, or a method of invoking protection or guidance for the spirit. Anthropologists note that these variations also offer insight into the social hierarchy, beliefs, and interactions of the people who practice these burials. Examining the infants themselves provides insight into health, diet, and mortality in ancient Laos. Forensic studies reveal patterns of growth, skeletal development, and causes of death. Some infants show signs of illness or malnutrition, reflecting the harsh realities of life in remote environments. Others appear healthy, suggesting that death may have been sudden or due to unforeseen circumstances. Regardless, each jar preserves the body with astonishing fidelity, capturing details of clothing, hair, and even small facial features that allow us to connect with individuals across centuries. The jars are often located in clusters, suggesting family plots or communal burial areas. Their placement within the landscape reflects careful consideration of the environment: elevated ground to prevent flooding, shaded areas to moderate temperature, and locations near water or natural landmarks that may have had spiritual significance. The careful choice of burial site demonstrates the profound respect given to these young lives, ensuring that even in death, they remained protected and honored within the community. Cultural and spiritual interpretation is essential to understanding the jars. Local traditions speak of spirits, guardians, and ancestral connections. Infants who may have died before reaching certain milestones in life were believed to require special protection in the afterlife. The jars serve as both a physical and symbolic vessel, guiding the spirit and connecting the child to the cycle of life, death, and renewal. Some anthropologists argue that these practices reflect a broader worldview in which the natural and supernatural realms are closely intertwined, and where death is not an end but a passage into a different form of existence. Scientific analysis adds further layers of understanding. Radiocarbon dating provides approximate timelines, showing that the practice spans centuries, evolving with changes in society, resources, and cultural influences. Materials analysis of the jars reveals sourcing of clay, firing techniques, and evidence of trade or interaction between communities. Even the orientation of the jars, north, south, east, west, may carry ritual or symbolic meaning, hinting at an understanding of cosmology or spiritual geography. What makes these burials particularly striking is their emotional resonance. Unlike adult or communal burials, the jar babies capture the fragility of life, the tenderness of care, and the weight of loss in a profoundly tangible way. Archaeologists and visitors often remark on the sense of intimacy these jars convey, the careful positioning and attention to detail, signaling that every child, however brief their life, was valued and respected. The jars transform absence into presence, mortality into memory, and loss into an enduring connection with human continuity. Over time, the jars have weathered the elements, yet they endure. They survive floods, forest growth, and shifting soil conditions, standing as a testament to the skill of their creators and the resilience of cultural memory. Each jar carries a story, both personal and communal, a silent testament to the universality of care, mourning, and ritual across human societies. As researchers continue to study the jar burials, the findings extend beyond archaeology into anthropology, sociology, and spirituality. By examining these ancient practices, modern observers gain insight into the beliefs, values, and emotional depth of past societies. The jars illustrate how humans have always sought to honor life, safeguard memory, and find meaning in the face of mortality. The jar babies of Laos are more than historical artifacts. They are profound symbols of care, culture, and continuity. They illuminate the human desire to preserve identity, provide protection, and maintain a connection between the living and the dead. The meticulous placement, the craftsmanship of the vessels, and the enduring presence of the infant's remains speak to a timeless understanding of vulnerability, reverence, and ritual. In the quiet valleys and forests of Laos, these jars remain as witnesses to centuries of cultural practice. They connect us with lives that were fleeting, yet deeply significant, revealing a society attuned to both the material and spiritual aspects of existence. Every jar tells a story of love, loss, protection, and belief, offering an unparalleled glimpse into the values, priorities, and emotional world of ancient communities. The jars remind us that even the youngest lives were considered precious, deserving of care, ritual, and memory. Through their preservation, they continue to speak across centuries, conveying lessons about mortality, community, and humanity. These burials are evidence that human beings, regardless of time or place, have always sought to honor the delicate balance of life and death, to create meaning, and to maintain continuity between generations. In studying the jar burials, we see not only the artistry of the vessels or the rituals performed, but also the emotional resonance of care, protection, and reverence. The jars are a bridge between past and present, a connection to individuals who lived, breathed, and were loved, despite their brief time on Earth. They are an enduring reminder of human resilience, cultural sophistication, and the universal desire to honor life in the face of death.